Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with Matt Cloer tonight, and we're coming to you from Boynton Beach, Florida. We're at the FM Tennis Performance Center. Matt has been a guest before. Great to have him back. He's in this area because 2 miles down the street at the Delray Beach Tennis Center, the Clay Court Nationals. Matt, who's with the USTA as a national coach for 5-6 years, you let us know. And now he's with the University of Florida. But let's catch up with Matt. But I think what we need to do, talk a little bit about perhaps the position you left the USTA and now going to the University of Florida. Work with Bryan Shelton, Scotty Perelman. With basics, 101's a good, I got to go back to basics 101. I think we all took that entry-level college course. But why don't you give us an update? Tell us you and your family are moving down the road or up the road.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. Great to be back. I was with the USTA for about 5.5 years, and had tremendous opportunity with the USTA, and really had the opportunity to work up and down the pathway on both sides, the men and the women. Spent 3+ years with Mackie McDonald full time, and really still involved with his team till today, and see that happening for a long time. Mackie's a great friend, and hopefully can still be able to help him and his coach Jaime and whoever else comes onto his team for a long time. And then also at the USTA was able to work very closely with our collegiate program, and helping some of our top collegiate players as they transition out of college and work with their coaches while they're in college. Have built some great relationships, and then also was able to work alongside Kathy Rinaldi, and working with some of our top young transition girls on the girls' side, and spent a little bit of time with Danielle Collins. And helped, was able to be a part of that great run she made to her first semifinal Grand Slam in Australia. And also was able to just, help in a lot of different roles during my time there, and super appreciative and grateful for that opportunity. And, this new adventure for my family and I, to the University of Florida to be a part of such a great program that Coach Shelton has, and culture that he's had during his time there. So really excited and humbled and grateful for the opportunity.
Matt, Jamie, what's Jamie's last name? Who works with Mackenzie?
Oh, Jaime Polgar. Yeah, Jaime played at NC State and was a great player for them. And Jaime's from Madrid, and has a really good tennis mind, and really hard worker, and so really takes care of a lot of details, and so does a great job.
Good jump around here. How long have you known Bryan? Known him a long time, right?
Yeah, Coach Shelton. When Coach Shelton was a national coach for the USTA, I think I was about 12. So Bryan was one of the first national coaches that I had growing up as a junior. So going back to 12. So I've known Bryan for over 20 years, and stayed in touch with him through the years. And then during my time at the USTA working with the collegiate program, was able to help some of the players that he had on his team. And then obviously over the past couple years, been able to see his son Ben a lot more, and follow his progress and development. So it's been so Bryan and I have known each other for a long time. So pretty neat to be able to work side by side.
That's very interesting. I just listened to a podcast. A mutual friend of ours, Holt Vaughn, told me to. He suggested listening to this podcast with Bryan Shelton. It's amazing. I knew you knew him, but I didn't know it went back that many years. That's one thing you can find out with these stories on podcasts. I guess if Dave Fish said that to us, podcast is like going back to talk radio years ago, where people didn't have a TV; they just listened to the radio.
Yeah, they're great. You can get in a long car ride and find out a lot of great things.
I was in the stadium sure you were there too. I mean, that was your workplace when Florida won. It was like a movie script with his son clinching the match for them to beat. Who they beat in the finals?
Who did they beat in the final?
Texas, maybe.
They, we'll have to go back and check that.
With he was last match out, or he clinched it.
Yeah, Ben clinched it. I think Ben was playing 5 that match. I mean, pretty special team. That team, not only with Ben with it on that team, but also Sam Riffis, won NCAAs in 2021, and then Ben winning it this year in 2022. So back-to-back individual national champions. I think this year they had a great team as well. Came up a little bit short against Virginia, who ended up winning it. Florida still finished number 2 in the country. So finished 1 in 2021, finished 2 in 2022, and so has been in the at a top 10 program for many years now. So so many positives, and again, the culture there is pretty awesome.
We could certainly talk about more about Ben. I know you spent some time on the court with him already, but he's somebody who played. I found out through the podcast that he was a quarterback. Tell us about your kids. 12, 10, 8, 2.
12, 10, 8, 2. Boy, girl. Case, Camden, Cohen, and Kenna. No, we're a really active family, and all my kids, like a bit of different things, which is great. And my oldest son has done a ton of competitive gymnastics and loves baseball. My daughter, Camden, is like soccer, playing a lot more tennis now, which is really fun, something that, being able to get on the court and just do anything with my kids, whether it's soccer or throwing the baseball, just, being able to, share something with them and is a lot of fun. And then Cohen loves soccer and playing more tennis. They spent a lot of time at my parents' house this summer, and my dad's a teaching pro, so my dad's had some camps, and so that means Cohen's got to play, a lot more tennis, which has been great. And then our little 2-year-old Kenna, who's just getting into everything right now. So busy times, but a lot of fun.
Tell us about your horse.
Yeah. Steve calls my dog a horse, and he's not too far off. It's Rocky. He's 3-year-old chocolate lab, about 115 pounds. My youngest daughter's probably her best friend. She spends the most time around him, and we're really lucky. He's I don't think he's got a mean bone in his body, but he's a big boy.
Big guy. So Matt's taking some advice. I'm the old guy, but he didn't take my advice on Rocky. Before Rocky was named Rocky, great name. That I was suggesting that they name their dog Practice. Here, Practice. Let's go, Practice. Practice. Where's Practice? Let's go, Practice. So your oldest son, Case, he shows up, and I call him Tarzan. I mean, he won some state titles, correct, as a gymnast?
He did, yeah. He's been a pretty special. He's just he had some good coaching, and we're talking about basics. He had some really good basics, and that allowed him to develop really well. And I think he's very strong, and he's done really well for that. He's taken a little bit of a break from it. He's on a little bit of medicine that's with some things to help with his growth, but which also has allowed him to play different sports more, which is gotten into baseball. And I think that's something I'm a believer in multiple sports for kids growing up, and not having them specialize too early. And so I think that's something that has allowed him to find something else that he really, really likes, and still do things and other things. So just like all my kids, having them be all-around athletes first, and not specialize in anything too early, and hopefully they find something that they're really passionate about and go for it.
One thing I picked up from my older brother, who studied Russian ice hockey. He has a PhD in Russian studies, but all athletes in the Soviet system, be a master of two sports, but all started with gymnastics. With the tennis kids really could benefit so much, even in the beginning, if it's just tumbling exercises, body awareness. But for many, many years, almost on a regular year in and year basis, from being based in Tampa for 15 years, we would go to Gainesville just to take in a college tennis match, but to go and walk around the campus. But I remember too many times watching the gymnast practice, and next thing you know, there's an ambulance there. So don't you think, I mean, not to take shots at the sport, but it's really better for than long term?
Yeah, I think so. I think that obviously with any sport, that if you're trying to compete at a very high level, or just there's always going to be risks. I think maybe gymnastics maybe has a little bit more in certain areas. Yeah, I mean, I think that we were lucky with my oldest son that he knock on this table, that he hadn't had any injuries. But I think it's given him a great athletic base, and he's extremely strong in his core, and his sense of awareness, body awareness is out of this world. So he's kind of like a cat. If you drop him somewhere, he's always going to land on his feet or find a way to be in balance. So a ton of positives with it. And I think even with the kids playing soccer, helping their awareness, just creating a different sense of awareness with different sports is always always a positive for any athlete.
I know we're going to get around to talking about tennis basics. I always tell kids, hitting a volley is not as dangerous as doing a backflip on a balance beam. I mean, it's amazing what the gymnasts do. It's almost like people have a fear factor in going to the net. So I know I spent a lot of hours with all your children, but especially with Cammie. She has a very good technical base. She hasn't, as you could talk about, hasn't really hit billions of balls, but she's athletic and she has really good technique. And it's just, I mean, I meet so many children, they come to us when they're 14, 15 years old, and they have no base.
Yeah.
It's like, unfortunately, you're a redo. Now, the way the brain works, you don't have to change anything. You can just hit the ball the way you hit the ball. I was talking to one of the college coaches today, used a great word, is there's a ceiling. There's going to be a ceiling on how, I was actually Josh Goffey from South Carolina, said, talking about his dad, he was a guest on the podcast, great guy, that so many kids enter college tennis and they have a ceiling on that, they have holes in their game.
Yeah, I think going back to my daughter, I think I think her she's getting that itch a little bit more, and it's something that I've just kind of let, we'll go out there and hit balls. We'll, obviously spend a lot of time trying to make sure that, she has good swings. So having that good start, having that strong fundamental base. So, and then, so when she does really, start hitting a lot more balls and really finding that passion for it, then I think she's going to be in a really good spot. So I think a lot of times where, I think when people have asked me, what do you feel like would be when you're bringing your kids into any sports, you want to get the basics as sound, 101. You want to get the foundation as solid as you can, and so I think that's really important with anything that you do. And we'll see if Cammie, what she wants to do with her tennis, and but as the older you get, the more myelin you build, the more habits that you have, the harder it is to unlearn. So unlearning is harder than learning.
I've told people recently, I'd like to become an athletic director at elementary school. Brandon Flanagan, who has increasing number of facilities with his partner, Allington, FM Tennis Performance. I think they have 8 facilities now, and 2 of them are private schools. And one in particular, I'm over there on Saturday mornings. They have a really nice tennis facility. But they actually have every kid learn how to run properly. I mean, just body balance from Welby Van Horn, just even on how to hit a tennis ball, how to hit a golf ball, how to throw a ball, how to catch a ball. and then use the Dennis Vandermeer trickery. So they have, they start with all these different sports, and like say American football, which is probably one of the standing cultures of really learning character in America. Perhaps that's not part of because of the budgets and whatever. But lacrosse it's not that expensive a sport. Really, tennis shouldn't be. If we went back to everybody just take one private lesson a week and just start hitting the backboard, doing baskets, calling people up. But what's happening at these elementary schools, kids are just using computers. They're not even outside. The camps are inside.
Yeah. It's too bad. Obviously, I think I try and be outside with my kids as much as I can and get them playing. I think you and I were talking a little bit earlier today, just, I guess with the scary things that go on in this world a little bit, but it's hard, I guess, I totally understand it. Just, it's a little bit scary sometimes letting your kids outside. But I think one thing that's really neat that I'm going to definitely miss about my neighborhood in Orlando is that ability my kids are outside playing kickball in the street with our neighbors and playing, you name it. They're outside. So it's pretty neat to see that happening still today. Maybe you probably don't see it as much, but definitely, lucky to have that happening.
No, for younger people listening, kickball in America, that was the first way to teach people how to play baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I learned to play baseball, or at least understanding.
First base, second base, third base, fourth base.
Yeah.
You got Cohen's a soccer player. And how about the Bambino? She's too young. She's 2, but she's in charge.
Yeah. She's all over the place. She reminds me of my oldest son, Case. She's climbing everything. Her awareness isn't as good as his was. So she's fallen a little bit more. But no, I mean, we're super blessed with a really amazing family, and the champion superhero for us all is Mom. We just celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary last week, and so I think that's she's the glue for us.
Well, shout out to Lauren. Matt's here recruiting, as I mentioned, the National Clay Courts with Bryan Shelton. And this evening, the tennis day is done. We're having a conversation on tennis, the podcast. And Lauren is with the boxes. She's with the moving truck. So
the moving truck is gone. That was gone yesterday. She's a champ, and I can't say enough.
Well, I could throw this out. I would say it's more painful to be unpacking than it is to watch junior doubles. Although junior doubles is pretty painful to watch. I think we start talking about basics with basic concepts, basics for singles drills, basics for doubles drills, basics obviously for stroke production. We had a young gal visit today from Canada. She just was hitting balls, just joined in. One of the other Canadians just asked if she could come by, and hats off. This young gal's got a scholarship at an SEC school, and I said, she's coming out tomorrow as well. I said, I'd like to just watch her hit a few balls. And the first 20 balls, she just hit forehands. And that would be a basic drill. It's like divide the court in half. When you're warming up, it's a forehand and it's a backhand. You do not run around a ball when you're just rallying up the middle first thing out of the box. But tell us before we get into more on basics. Question you're asked, you're a national coach with the USTA. Why would you go? I know you're no stranger to college tennis. You were an All-American at Florida State. Now you're in their Hall of Fame. Then you coached at Florida State. Then you coached at NC State. So you're no stranger to college tennis, but why would you go back to college tennis? Why would you leave the USTA?
Yeah, I mean, I think my time at USTA was incredible, and loved what I got to do, and I love college tennis too. That's a passion of mine, and so I think really, one reason is Coach Shelton. That's a big reason, and I think just the opportunity to work alongside him and learn, continue to learn and just be a part of a collegiate environment again is something that I love and something that wanted to have my kids around, and a little bit of a different change of pace for me. I think being a national coach and especially with working with pro players, which a lot of it was which I was doing a lot, involves a lot of time away from home. And so where my kids are at in their age, being at home was very important to me. And again, I think just that opportunity to go back to college tennis, and it was only a couple hours up the road from where we were living in Orlando, and to be a part of such a special program, work alongside someone that I have so much respect for, was a really neat, humbling opportunity. And so I think it's, I'm looking forward to getting into everything again.
I think for your family to be on that college campus, it's just like, wow. I remember taking a young player from Dusseldorf, and I said, we're going to go to the University of Florida, and they're going to have a stadium that's bigger than any stadium in Dusseldorf. He goes, no way. I go, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And the nice thing, I'm sure it's still going on, it's open. The football stadium's open, so you can go in and, climb the stairs. And I remember taking my son, Mikhail, one time, and one of the older players just bet him that he could run from the bottom all the way up to the top. He must have been like 9 years old. And he made it, but I was afraid he was going to fall. It was like climbing a mountain. But it's an amazing campus. And then to be around all the different sports.
Yeah, it's a special place. I think a lot of time with any big collegiate program or school, I think they're all special, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be neat to be able to, I think with the University of Florida, the athletic program, all the sports are some of the best in the country, and being able to watch future Olympians or current Olympians compete on the track, or future NBA stars, future NFL stars, be able to have that exposure to such a high level of sport in general, is something not only for the student athletes but for the community, and really excited for my family to be a part of that.
Scotty Perelman, Brian told me today, I was talking to him at the tournament, that when Brian showed up, you get Scotty to show up, so they started together. And I can remember I think Scotty said they were number 21, the men's team in the country, and they were the lowest ranked team on campus. So a lot of success. We were there one time. It was Billy Donovan, our fact checker. We have a fact checker. I think Billy Donovan, that's the name of the basketball coach who was there. Yannick Noah's kid was on the team. They won back-to-back national championships.
Yeah, Billy Donovan was the coach. Yep.
Yeah, so it worked out well. That particular time, I didn't have a large group. There was just a couple of us. So we, Pearl had it set up where we went to a gym workout. All the rules. So the kids have to be they can't be in high school.
Right. And
we had a chance to watch the basketball team work out, which was cool.
Yeah, the resources at the University of Florida are incredible, and the facilities, and we actually share a facility kind of with the tennis facility and the basketball practice facility are pretty much touching. So the team will be sharing the gym that the basketball team has at their practice facility, and so again, being able to see the athletes interact together, and being around other high level athletes outside of your sport is huge.
Story of a high level athlete, former Gator, then he was a Chicago Bear, Neil Anderson. Andy Brandy, who I worked for with All American Sports going back to the late 70s, he was a women's coach. And he sent Neil Anderson, who was long retired from football, but went back to Gainesville to run a business. So anyway, he was sent to get filmed and go through the process. And he came back. He came back 3 times, but he watched the tennis intelligence apply, that 25-hour course we had 3 times. First time he came back, he said, "Coach, it's not going to work." And I just started laughing. What he meant was,
Too much work.
it's too much work. But I said it would work if it was the NFL. And he goes, "Yeah, it would. It would. It would be 9 to 5, and everybody would watch those tapes." With, I think being part of a team, I know having a squad, 4 years. When you were at the USTA, you did a lot with camps where a kid would come in for like a week. It's obviously a different animal. How much can you help a kid in a week? We're doing a lot of that now.
Sure. Yeah, I think with kids coming in and out, I think it's an opportunity to expose them. It's a lot about exposure, a lot about creating an environment that exposes them to professionalism on a daily basis of from a strength and conditioning standpoint, from a proper warm-ups to proper cool downs to and then also being able to bring their peers in of the same level that they're seeing, just to train with them where they just don't see them at a national tournament. So they're actually training together. And but yeah, it is, you're not really, it's a training week. You're not really able to, if there's some flaws or some holes, it's, pointing it out to the parent or the coach that maybe comes with them, and then hopefully they're able to, have some application process to help that improve.
For us, it's different because when people are recommended to come to work with us, it's not based on talent. It's based on studying information. So the coach who recommends someone to come and see us, they know coming in they're going to be filmed for 2 days, and then after that, there's no competitive play. It's
going to work.
It's not like, okay, well, I think that's a formula for most academies is we'll do drills in the morning and play matches in the afternoon. And if some kid has a hole in their game. But no, I think we could talk about the basics through the tournament that we've been watching the last few days. But also you're just at Wimbledon. But I've known Matt since he recruited my son Connor, so it's pretty easy for me to put that together. We're 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Where would you want to begin? We start talking about basics. Maybe we should go back to Wimbledon first, because
Sure.
then that was last week, and this week's in the Clay Court Nationals. Why don't you share a thought on basics just randomly? Singles, doubles, forehands, backhands.
Well, I think the basics of watching Wimbledon. I think you look at the basics. The best players in the world, they can all serve. So I think starting with the most important shot in the game, how you start the point, the serve. So, having good mechanics, especially early on, having from obviously it starts with the grip, swing, body, and with the serve, toss. Being able to have the most efficient swing as you can, and so I think that's a pretty good one that you need to have, and then obviously the second one would be a pretty good solid return, and that's going to start with starts with a good ready position and the grip and simple unit turns, and obviously you have to be able to recognize and things like that, but yeah, I think that's something that stands out to me at Wimbledon. Obviously the best players in the world, they're incredible athletes, and they've hit millions and millions of balls, and then not only have they hit millions and millions of balls, they've hit millions of purposeful balls. They're not just hitting balls. There's purpose to every ball that they're hitting. But I think with the basics of serves, everything's, it starts with those 2 shots.
One thing on tactics, I guess to digress, to me, if they're recruited to play at the University of Florida, they're pretty much knocking on the door. They're thinking about playing pro tennis as well.
Absolutely.
And many of the people that come to us, if they don't make the changes, they're not going to play college tennis. So we're not working like a college coach, which is, I think, really more art than science, is to work within a player's game.
Sure.
Someone's 18 years old and, they've been playing, say, you don't necessarily have to change the grip. You know, you to tweak, to modify. But on tactics at Wimbledon, the young gal who got to the finals, great personality, Ans Jabeur.
Yeah.
And I know you've been around the tour as well. So to me, you know, she has great touch, but yet to me, a basic would be you're serving on a fast court. You don't want your opponent to be at the net if it's your serve. So to me, I think that's gone away where, you know, there's just not attacking the net.
No, it's definitely something I think. Obviously, the grass is different than it was years ago, but I think the tactics. If you look at statistics on the men's and the women's side, the winning percentage is about 66%, both men and women, of net points won when they come forward. It's just the total of net appearances is not that high. So I think that's where, I think, Roger Federer, hopefully, he gets to come back and plays at a good level because he's so much fun to watch that he's still going to be able to play good ball at Wimbledon and really anywhere, but because he has that, he has ability to he understands looking to come forward. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for players today to look to finish points at the net, and it's just really understanding and managing those stats a lot more.
This year, we're working early in the morning and in the evening. Beat the heat here in Florida, so we're up before the sun's up. Cliff Drysdale, the South African, he's been in the U.S. a long time. He's 80 years old, and it's great. He's still working. And I remember being in the stadium where he was playing Nastase. And to Drysdale's credit, he started attacking Nastase's. It was on a hard court. Started attacking as a second serve. And then he started attacking the first serve. And Nastase, I think, learned from Tiriac, and Nastase taught Connors to wave the finger. So Nastase looks over, and everybody in the stadium just stops. You can't hear a pin drop. I should say you can hear a pin drop. So he points his finger, Nastase, at Drysdale, says, no. You cannot do that. I am going to hit my serve first. You have to wait for the ball to bounce, and I'm coming to the net first. So you have to wait. And Johnny on the spot, he started to attack.
Yeah.
People read about McEnroe. McEnroe spent a lot of time playing different sports growing up, and Douglas down in New York, he played on clay, and he was a baseliner. And he just said, hey, I'm in Wimbledon. Of course, the grass was different, but he just started going forward. I know that you spent time with Max Cressy, Andy Fitzell. I know I spent a little time with him. He was playing the Canadian Felix.
Auger Aliassime.
Yeah. What's Brad Gilbert call him? Double A?
The double A, yeah.
That,
Okay, yeah.
To me, watching him, and I know Miran Mann talked about on one of our podcasts, traveling with him. He's so disciplined. I watched him play in Europe. He's 13 years old. And you could just tell then there's something special about this kid. But to me, when he's playing Max, same thing as the girl who got to the finals from Tunisia, that Felix had to go forward. It's grass. I'm not letting Max Cressy come to the net. It's my turn to be at the net. Even though I'm more comfortable being a baseline player,
Sure.
I'm coming in. Federer in the match against Sampras, where he won, there was 5 consecutive Wimbledons played where he came to the net more in that one match than he did in 5 consecutive Wimbledons. And I do think that, the grass has changed, but it just comes down to the very beginning when they're younger. Like watching the doubles today, jumping ahead back to the clay or up to the clay court this week. The doubles are you kidding me? I mean, it's like a skit on how not to play doubles.
Sure.
And the parents are watching, the coaches are watching, the college coaches. I'm just feeling sorry for college coaches. Is like, the grips that they have, the ready position, the tosses, and it's like, this isn't going to work. But it works because the people on the other side are playing the same way.
Same thing, yeah.
Same way. What else comes to your mind with Wimbledon?
Yeah, you talked. Yeah, I think when you look look at with the pros today, and not just pros today, it's in any professional sport. Just the attention to detail of everything, of the professionalism is, it's just really neat to see how they take care of every detail, from the way they eat to the way that they take care of the body off the court. Every minute is, designed to make sure that their performance is at the highest level. Whether if it's on days off, they're in the gym or they're lifting after their matches. And, so there's a reason that they have full teams around them. They have, a full staff that is, doing everything they possibly can to make sure that they are able to perform at the highest level. I think it would be nice to see more guys coming forward. I think that's especially, we were talking about just with the stats there. I think that's where Max is pretty fun to watch. He is coming forward on everything. First, second serve, he's looking to get in whenever he can. But I think that there's definitely an opportunity, and the stats speak to it, of finding more opportunities to come forward.
Besides the 16s and 18s for boys, we have the girls' 12s here. And we always tell people, okay, you're up 40 love. Carlos Goffey, Bill Jacobson, the green light point. And that's when it's 3 points. It can be 2 points, 40, 15, 30 love. Is hit a body serve so they don't have any angle, your opponent. And then come to the net. Peter Burwash just passed away, 77 years old, great Canadian, did so much for tennis. You mentioned professionalism. I think Peter really made a major impact on tennis, the tennis teaching industry, with just that word, professionalism, but the creative side. So I think more so than usual, when Rafa was playing Taylor Fritz, and I know you've spent time with Taylor Fritz. Here's a guy who starts the point well on the serve and return, big time. But with Rafa just floating the ball up in the air, and Taylor waiting for it to bounce. Pancho Seguro used to say, and this is unfortunate, that years ago everybody smoked cigarettes. And Pancho used to say, by the time the kid hits the ball, you could light a cigarette. And the ball's just floating up there like a wounded duck. And to just come in and take that out of the air. Why I mentioned Peter with creative tennis, he'd say, okay, let's play a set. Just, you're on the baseline, you serve underhand, and you're going to keep score just like it's a set, throw the ball up high. You could play a swinging volley, but just come in and play a conventional volley, which is pretty much a lost art now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just play sets that way.
Sure. And knowing Taylor would love that, because Taylor's super competitive.
Yeah, so, you've told me that you think he's the most competitive male, and then
he's
the young girl from
competitive.
Here.
Yeah, Danielle Collins is extremely great competitor. Taylor. No, I think that's an area where Taylor can keep developing, and obviously I think he's 11 in the world, or top 15 in the world, and really starts the point well with serve and return, and aggressive from the ground. And if he adds that side to his game, could
so
do some more
when
damage.
you're there, I know you're there to recruit, right? You watch the juniors, but you saw the quite a bit of the women and the men.
Yeah, I was able to when the matches were over with some of the juniors, be able to sneak over and to watch. It's always great to be able to watch the players and just see how the game's going and what's going on, and it's just being able to just soak it all in, and is always good.
I mean, you have so much firsthand experience with Coco Gauff, gets to the French Open finals. She's at Wimbledon. And, I say often on the podcast, if we were to criticize a pro player, we're not necessarily criticizing the pro player. They're a pro player.
Yeah.
But, it's like Sam Querrey on the backhand volley. I remember telling some of the officials with the USTA, I was in a meeting years ago with Rob Krychek, and said, really, the Sam Querreys of the future, they need to have a better backhand volley. I know Sam Querrey's millions of dollars in the bank, and hats off to Sam Querrey. But I know you've been on the court with Coco Gauff. In the TV booth now, they're just talking about her forehand. And, then in our world, grip, swing, body, is someone going to go back? I'd love to listen to Brad Gilbert. He's one one time said, "I don't do grips." And, I think that's something with college tennis. There's a difference between teaching and coaching, or even combining both. To get into the nuts and bolts, what would your thought be on her tennis game?
Yeah, I've spent a little bit of time on the court with Coco, just a little bit. Obviously, incredible competitor, incredible athlete, and I think I think either her dad said it or I've heard someone say it, where she'd walk across glass on bare feet to win matches, and that's what makes her. That's what's gonna she's probably gonna win a slam, maybe if more than one. Yeah, I think it's always, like you said, at 18, 19, 20 years old, it's always hard to go back and change. But I do think where a lot of professional athletes, they are looking for that competitive edge, that competitive advantage, and I think where there's a will, there's a way. So I know that she's working with former national coach Diego Moyano, and I think that we'll see what happens in the future, but she's going to keep winning, I think. Even if she does need to, probably modify some things on the forehand, and I know that she's trying to do that, but we'll see what happens.
We make these, as make these technical tapes that are very verbose, and it really comes down, unfortunately, you have to be so persuasive. The parent, the consumer, they just are overexposed in some ways. They've heard, there's 99 different ways to hit a forehand. So I always think of Jack Kramer. He said about Greg, I told his story just to touch upon it. Gabrielle Sabatini's 2 in the world. And he said, I think she should take a year off and rebuild her game. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be a year off. But, you have lots of money in the bank. It's like with Lendl. Tony Roach said to Lendl, it's your ego, it's your greed. You've won everything but Wimbledon. Don't just wait to start serving volley 3 weeks before. Just serve and volley the whole year.
Sure.
Just tell the world I'm
doing it.
I'm doing this to win Wimbledon.
Yeah.
But common sense is not often common. But with Coco Gauff, to just say, okay, creative training. Okay, you play this set. You have to stay inside the baseline. You can't hit top on your forehand. Just say, okay, we're just gonna take it like a volley, and just even on serves, just take it, just push it forward, and say, well, no one plays that shot anymore. Say, well, then you have to dig out some film of Roger. Roger plays that shot. And if you go slowly, to hit flat, you have to swing up, because when ball hits the court puts more spin on the ball than the player, and you have to swing up to hit flat. You finish up when you hit underspin. You lift. You don't lift. It's not as violent a lift as topspin. But I think it's a matter of who's going to be in her corner.
Sure.
And I think a lot of times there's, too many cooks in the kitchen. Instead of saying, okay, here's one person. But then I think, because when someone becomes a better player, this is even true at the grassroots level, is they're more exposed. They've got everybody talking to them. Everybody wants to coach the kid in, 12s who's about to win. People are out there handing out their business cards, and it's just terrible. But with that, it's just, to be sitting and watching on TV, the commentators are going, she's going to have to improve her forehand. She's going to have to improve her forehand. And then it's like, well, okay, how is she going to improve it? And I think a lot of times, too, is that is the person in their corner someone who's really done that? Are they a technician? A lot of times, like for where I'm coming from, I think at the pro level, a lot of people are going to say, that guy needs to go sit in section F and eat a hot dog. They're not listening. But then some things are more of a drastic change. We say major surgery versus Band-Aid. But when you say at Wimbledon, more drop shots than approach shots with a lot of matches?
Yeah, definitely a lot more drop shots than approach shots. Definitely saw that in the women's finals, for sure. Somebody
that you and I both worked with, Nick Horton. He grew up same age as Nick Kyrgios.
Yep.
So, what I share with the listeners, what do we mean when we say he's got a finesse volleys?
Yeah, he's one, it starts with a little bit of the grip, and then he's really just chopping at it a little bit. He's not really driving and sticking it.
You got to love Kyrgios in some ways. They asked him, "You don't have a coach?" He goes, "Well, I don't want to do that to someone." But he actually won a tournament where young Zverev, congratulated his team. He goes, "Well, I'd like to congratulate your team, your coaches. I don't know what they do, but I remember Nick Horton said that when he was young, he had a win over Nick Kyrgios in the 12s.
Yeah.
But he said he was playing the same way."
Yeah, I mean, I saw Nick. I was down in Australia, in December, and yeah, I mean, Nick was playing the same way at 16, and they're big, pretty free guy, really good serve.
Well, we watched someone play today that you and I both coached, and I said he needs to play 3 hours of basketball. Steve Denton, coach at Texas A&M, he goes, "Yeah, he shouldn't touch the ball. Just play defense." Because he's hitting the ball very cleanly, big serve. But with Kyrgios, I think he's so competitive. I mean, he has a reset on the backhand. He's pretty much bunting the backhand. He's consistent, but people aren't attacking it. You really can't say it's a weakness unless you apply pressure.
Sure.
So he's playing many people that are not serving to the backhand coming in. As great as Djokovic is, that's almost like an option he doesn't show, or an opportunity, a skill that he doesn't play that pattern. Well, okay, I'm going to mix it up and serve and volley some.
I think it was great to see Novak at the end of last year. Where playing Medvedev, you saw Djokovic coming forward so much more and serving and volleying a lot. I think in maybe the case of Novak and Nick, Novak just knows that he's going to be able to, I think everyone calls it lockdown mode, that he's just better than Nick in the baseline rally. So he's not going to give Nick too much of a target, and he's just going to say, I'm going to, Novak's got a little cleaner backhand than Nick. So.
Well, also too, directionals, he would take the backhand down the line. Braden used to say, "Hey, stupid." You take the ball down the line. I mean, I watched one of the kids we coached, another kid. We have between the 12s, 16s, and 18s, we're well over a dozen kids that are playing this tournament, or to the 3 tournaments. So it was just one pattern. He's playing somebody who had an extreme grip on the forehand side, and they were just looking to just go for a home run.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's on the run laterally, going east and west. But with Nick, he did miss a lot of forehands. I mean, it's like a go for broke forehand. But when he comes in, I always tell people, singles in, doubles, if he could just play one volley deep. Kyrgios, as great as his service, I mean, you should be able to come in behind it.
Yeah.
It's Hank Jungle had a lot to do with motivating Tim Gullickson. And Tim Gullickson, I mean, he was almost 25 before he went on the tour. And he became a teaching pro. I think it was the Kettering Racket Club, Xenia, Ohio. And Hank Jungle was in that area. I remember listening to Hank say the supermarket of tennis is, that's where Federer was asked, are you going to start to come to that more? And I think he did when he was working with Edberg. He said, "Why don't you come as much as Edberg?" He said, "I don't volley as well as Edberg." But if, just to use one's imagination, behind the Kyrgios serve, which is arguably one of the best ever, if somebody could come in and have a Edberg volley. Because in Wimbledon, I didn't do pen to paper, but he didn't hit many overheads.
No.
And when you're playing really offensive tennis, especially on grass, the overhead is a sign that you're playing offensively.
Playing offensive tennis.
I mean, with there's a gal that we worked with. She's in the main draw of the 12s tomorrow. There's a good chance you could watch 2 straight days of 12s and not see an overhead. I mean, if you're not coming to the net, they're not going to lob. Why would they lob if you're not coming to the net?
We didn't see too many overheads in the matches that we saw today either.
No, but I think there's a premium on winning at such an early age. I think it was a little bit macho to make an understatement, but one's manhood was going to be questioned years ago if you'd serve and stay back. It was just taboo. In doubles, you didn't serve and stay back.
Sure.
I mean, hey, this is a man's game. But even the women, I know you spent so much time with Kathy Rinaldi. I remember watching her take lessons from Frank Froling, and he played open tournaments with us. This guy from England. He would work all week resurfacing courts, and he's 45 years old, and he'd show up, and it was fun to hang around with him. But I remember him teaching. But there's a mixed doubles tape with Chrissy Everett and Jimmy Connors. Just got to YouTube it. She's playing with Vince Van Patten. And that mixed doubles is so much better than mixed doubles today.
Yeah, Kathy still hits a really good ball. She's it's just players aren't coming forward as much as they were in the past.
Yeah, we always say the number one rule is if they don't come to the net because they don't come to the net. They want to win that 2-inch trophy, then they don't have the instincts. They don't have the internal wiring. That's where you see these young kids with the college coaches, like yourself, you're wearing the great logo, the Gator. And the kids, obviously, you can tell they have an edge. But someone should just say, this isn't going to work anyway.
Yeah. It would be great to see at the youngest levels in the orange balls or one doubles is played a lot, but also where make it where you have to serve and volley. And that would be something I think that you'd have much better, obviously, instincts of going forward. So I think starting it at an early age, I know I've seen programs where at younger ages where they put situations where you have to serve and volley on your first serve, or it's like, no, you're going to serve and volley all the time. And that's going to, and obviously like there's times where you need to practice maybe serving and staying back because you're probably going to play against a team that's going to serve and stay back, so you're not just kind of like totally thrown off, but still practicing more where players are having to come forward. And I think that's where you see players improve a ton in college, is where the coaches are trying to get them to come to the net more and play doubles. You can always tell players are pretty well taught by how they play doubles.
Yeah, the finishing point. To be a Finnish player, now that means you're from a Scandinavian country. With my son Connor, with doubles, people would say, you really play doubles well, and he had a great comeback. Well, not really. I just know where to stand.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite.
And I said, well, you could even add, where to how to hang on the racket. 2 other players today, I thought it was against the rules. I asked, and one of the parents said, no, you can coach. It used to be there's no coaching for 18s. The 16s, you could talk to them,
right,
if there was a split set, or the 14s, 12s. So I told us they were playing it for a 10-point match tiebreaker. And I said, one thing I'd recommend is to offset, because they weren't getting the returns cross court. And that worked for them because they had 2 players that they couldn't stick a volley. They're finessing. Mm-hmm. Finessing means they're just angling. They're hitting downward. They can't drive through the volley. But they lost 5 points by just not making a first volley. The other day we were at the FAU track and the kids were doing intervals, and I should say the other day, it was a month and a half ago. And I said, we're not leaving until we see one of these guys drop a football. And there's 2 quarterbacks, the receivers, and the way they were catching it, talk about basics, the thumbs like this or the fingers like this. And we were there for a long time, and I said, okay, we'll go. No one dropped the ball. And, another basic concept, someone else that we worked with, Matt's today, he couldn't finish it because of cramps. But he didn't really understand the 2-bounce rule. You're in the defensive area, neutral area, the red zone, and you're spreading the court. We tell people, and they don't think that we ever want them to run around the backhand. I go, no, you can do that, but you wait till you get inside the court.
Yeah, I think so many times where players are thinking, you hear the term open the court a lot, and they're spreading the court from defensive situations, which angle creates angle. And it's going to become a lot more lateral movement match. And I I think the player you're talking about ended up, going down to cramps. It was a long day. It's super hot, and it's one of the hotter days I can remember down here. And so, yeah, I think understanding court position and keeping I think Andre Agassi called it, keeping them within the tram lines. And if you really kind of if you could draw some lines on a court when you're watching it, the best players in the world are keeping the players within the tram lines until they're more in an offensive position, to where obviously from the middle of the baseline, it's less than 20 degrees. So as you move up, service line's 30 degrees, and obviously if the net itself is 180 degrees, and 3 feet back is 130. So the more you move forward, the more potential angle that you have. Another reason that's good to come forward. But just creating less angle, hitting the ball. And I think the other thing too is depth. I think that's a pretty basic 101, and from a tactical standpoint, keep it deep. If you're not keeping it deep and you're hitting it in the middle, then or just anywhere, then it's going to be a long day at the office if the other person on the other side of the net has some recognition skills and the ability to want to be able to step up and finish, and hit approach shots and things like that. But it's I think kids sometimes are confused with that term of opening the court, especially understanding where they are in position when they're receiving the ball.
No, the kid method, KID, keep it deep. Chrissy Everett's father had 2 nets, one on top of the other. Braden put up balloons for Tracy Austin. I just told a parent the other day, that's a junior word, don't use it. And they don't want to be a pusher, defensive specialist. I mean, when you're watching tennis on TV and the camera's shooting from up above the TV screen, there's obviously bigger TVs today than yesteryear, but the player's about the size of your smallest finger, the ball's about the size of your fingernail. It's an optical illusion. You think the players are hitting lasers, but they're the higher level players. Look, I'm going to copy Nadal. It's working for him. Plus, you're playing against people. There's some people today, they don't even warm up at the net. No, I'm good. They don't warm up at the net.
If they do, it's only like 2 or 3 volleys.
Yeah, you're down here scouting. I tell college coaches, well, you better see the warm up or you won't. That's the only chance you're going to get to see them volley.
Yeah.
But not to understand stats. All the way to Wimbledon. I do think that it trickles down.
Sure.
I mean, it's very, very difficult. I tell people all the time, well, you're not Djokovic. Nadal, he's from a different planet. I know Leighton Hewitt's getting inducted into Hall of Fame. That would be a guy to copy as far as just being a fighter. I mean, he wasn't the best ball striker. He had major holes in his game technically, but he took the ball early and it's just principled and talk about deep. And I think people in tennis, whether it's players, parents, coaches, is listen to what the pros say. Remember Hewitt saying the worst part of my game, and most of the top players, you could comment on that. If you listen to them, they're honest.
Yeah. And
he used to say the worst part of my game is my transition game. But when he's 19, he won the US Open doubles. The guy could play doubles, can serve, return, but when he did it, he was going to the net.
Yep. Yeah.
It wasn't one up, one back.
Yeah, he played doubles with Max Mirny. I think with pros, any good player, any sport, they're going to know themselves inside and out and what they do well and what they don't. And so I think it's, there's no secrets, and and then they're always trying to look for opportunities to improve those. But I think that's where, you go back to Djokovic. With Djokovic, I think when people say he goes into that lockdown mode, he just keeps it deep. Obviously he can move like a deer. I think that's another another 101 to talk about, is being able to, really work on the basics of your fitness early and getting your legs strong and really work on moving just as much as, if you can put really clean strokes together and you can move, then you're going to be in a pretty good spot and you can compete.
There's a short video on YouTube that was taken down I should have tried to save it. I should have had somebody else save it. Not that I know how to do it. So, but it was one of his fitness trainers talking about junior tennis and how kids, they're ending up like a pretzel. They're tying themselves in knots. They're off balance.
Yeah.
You know, with Djokovic and what we've put together, you know, someone recently called it a body of work. And that's just what it is. It's homework, a system of systems. And it's not just Braden. You know, we always say Braden's the Christmas tree, but there's lots of ornaments. And, you know, if you watch Djokovic hit a ball, if you just watch him in the ready position. But there's something as well as the guys that are making so much money now that they don't play doubles.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, when you look at Wimbledon, Wimbledon's 3 out of 5 in the singles, and it's 3 out of 5 in the doubles. And I think it's huge to be able to play both. But I think obviously with even on the grass with the physicality of things, and you know the main focus is trying. You know, I think there's a lot more money in both singles and doubles now, but there's definitely more money in singles, and you know guys trying to maximize and being as fresh as possible, and try and take care of the singles first. There's definitely a lot of that mentality for sure.
I do think when younger players are on YouTube and they look at old film, the ball is traveling. I mean, it's almost twice as fast.
Yeah, it's just different the way that the courts are taking it, and I think with technology, the strings and rackets, it's definitely it's bouncing higher. So yeah, I mean everything's just it's a little bit different.
But there's examples. I mean, if you took Lopez, he's, you know, slowing down, but he's Federer's age. But
Yeah.
there's still examples.
Yeah, it's still there. I mean, it's you can still maybe you can't. You can. I think Max Cressy is showing that you can if you have a big serve and you can come forward, you can do it all the time. But I think that's where he's committed to playing that way. And I think if you commit to something and really have the skill set to do it, then you know there's definitely. I mean, again, go back to the stats. The stats are saying that you know your guys and girls who are coming to the net, their win percentage is above 65-66%. So they're winning 2 out of every 3 when they come to the net.
Well, through you, Mackenzie McDonald stayed 3 weeks with us during the pandemic, and I asked him so many questions. But one was return to serve. He says, "Well, I'm just going to the middle. I'm going to the middle low if they're coming in. I'm going to the middle high if they're staying back." And like today, to just watch so many young kids missing a second serve return and missing it wide.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And then also too, they're hitting lower with the net. They're hitting short against people who won't even come in. So then they're they're hitting short and wide. And then you see them with their extreme grip on the forehand side, and they're just waving their arms, going, "I just hit forehands. I just hit forehands. I just hit forehands."
Yeah.
And then they watch them serve. They're, you know, a lot of the righties are serving to righties in their second serves. They're spinning out, the body's opening up, and they're hitting their second serve. They can't pinpoint it. They can't hit it away from the bat, away from the forehand.
Yep.
And it looks like this guy's trying to throw a discus, and this guy's trying to throw a discus, and you know, we beat it to death. You know, Crummy's playing Crummier. Who wins? Crummy wins, but they don't know they're Crummy because it's clones taught by clowns. They're playing the same. But also, too, at the pro level, if they were to turn the TV on, and that's where, you know, doubles is not on TV enough, but I heard someone say that, you know, the Bryans retired, so now, you know, serve and volley doubles is going to become obsolete. But that's not true. The top doubles teams.
Yeah, the top double teams are still looking to come forward.
On the men's side.
Yeah, more so on the men's side for sure. But I think that, yeah, I mean, there's just so many opportunities to finish at the net, and that's just where most potential angle is, and net beats the baseline whenever they come forward.
You know, Andy Brandy's older brother, Joe, great story. He had polio, became ranked 33 in the country in the 18s. His cousin, Charlie Passerell, was going to quit tennis because he thought Welby Van Horn was too tough. And Charlie Passerell's mother said, "Hey, your cousin's playing on one leg. You're not quitting." And, Charlie became such a great player. But Joe Brandy was working at Bollettieri's, and his daughter, the expression came out of the jungle, toughest junior playground in the world at one time. And she was training with us one time. Just I should say, she needed courts in Tampa on clay or hard. I guess it was clay, and she was there with her coach. And so we weren't really training her. She was there training.
Sure.
And I remember saying to the coach, said, hey, why don't we do a little exhibition before lunch? And he goes, no, you don't, you mean strokes? Because she was just a grinder, a fighter. And I think that's one thing that we see with the kids that we coach is that, they end up hitting the ball, pretty well, but then the compete factor. But so she came out of, Bollettieri, that playground, and, you think Joe was taught by Welby Van Horn, and there was just no semblance of, like a real clean ball striking all court game.
Yeah.
But what about that with, Wimbledon? I hear you use the term outlier. That the guys, and gals, they just learn to compete at such an early age. Why do you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously to be good at to be one of the best at what you do in any profession, you gotta have some juice and some competitive fire to. So obviously, I mean, one of the best. I heard this from I think someone. I think obviously we always hear. I mean, Nadal is an incredible competitor. It was very interesting to hear. We talked a little bit about Jaime Polgar, who's working with Mackie, and Jaime's spent some time with one of the coaches, Francisco Roig, who travels with Rafa quite a bit, and someone said, Nadal's such a an incredible competitor, and he goes, he's the best fighter. He's not the best competitor, he's the best fighter. So he differentiated competing and fighting, which I found, pretty interesting. So, I think that's one thing he's always going to fight, but I think as a competitor too, you're always trying to problem solve and figure things out. And if you watched, we talked a little bit about Taylor in that Rafa match where Nadal was basically, I mean, he went a lot of underspin backhands there he started just mixing that in all the time. But, so, I mean, that's just where Nadal went into problem solving and compete mode. So I think with that, we're the best athletes and players, they go through stages where they're, and for the most part, they do have a skill set that allows them to make some adjustments with the tactics that they're trying to play, whether they're going to try and play a little closer to the baseline. And you always see kind of some stats where first set, they lost a set and they were 8 feet behind the baseline, and then they won the second set and they were 2 feet from the baseline, so their court position changed, or they finished, they were taking balls more inside the court. So I think that awareness factor and competing side, I think Djokovic, same thing. He's, really, really good competitor, and all the best are, at anything they do, from Michael Jordan to any of them. There's that competitive edge that, they don't want to lose. So they're going to go through that process.
I'm trying to think who told me this. Maybe it was Dave Secker at NC State. Within college tennis, a rule may be changed where they're going to go back where you can take a year off. Take a year off for the entire year. You can play tournaments. It has been where you can take a year off, but you can only play for 6 months. So some kids have been taking this so-called gap year, repeating the 8th grade twice.
Yeah.
My question to you is, with college tennis, and looking at the players today at the national clay courts, it's done in football, it's done in basketball, it's not done very much in tennis. To me, I watch and I go, I think everybody goes to college, especially if they knew how long people were playing on the tour, they're taking care of their bodies, that college tennis players would be going for 5 years. And the first year would be a developmental year. They would redshirt. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that'd be pretty awesome. Obviously, with a college football team, there's 85, 90 athletes. I think with the scholarships of, especially on the men's side, it gets a little bit tricky. Just 4.5 scholarships and having to put a team of at least at minimum 6 singles players and obviously 3 doubles, and so but I think the developmental aspect of it would be huge. One, developing physically. You see there's a reason that there's a time period, and especially when you look at college football, you're not allowed to enter the NFL for until you're certain. I don't know if it's certain years in school or at least a certain age, or at least try out for for a scout team. Why? Because physically you're not gonna survive, and so obviously it would give players a more time to develop physically, emotionally mature, and obviously if there's parts of their game that need to be rebuilt, it allows them to and you could just be really smart with how you plan. The one thing though is they do need to work on, if there's holes they're gonna have to take that time and work on it. But the other thing too is obviously as tennis players, especially you still have to play some. You have to figure out that schedule to be able to. But again, if you could go 4 years is a long time in college. If you could add an extra year of development, that'd be great. That'd be a pretty neat system. So I'd be in favor for it. Don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that if people did their homework and say, well, how many players from Florida, Texas, UCLA, how many of them actually got to be top 200 in the world? If that would be the number, top 150, or even higher to end up, you could be higher to make money. It depends on where you're from. I mean, for American to make money, I know for years, like a German player, very wealthy country, they would do okay in their country.
Yeah, they have a great league system, which is something that allows them to play more. They can play full tennis schedule, then they can play league matches, and I think what a pretty neat system that allows a 13-year-old to be playing against a 30-year-old in a competitive environment. That so no, it's definitely a really neat system that they have in Germany. And then I think it also allows for it's all based out of the club, and people really support it, and so it's something that continues to happen. It'd be great to have that here in the States.
Well, I think the UTR, a lot of positives, but a lot of negatives. The UTR, in that sense, I know Dave Fish stepped away. Should have been free. It is. You can self-rate now. But imagine if you didn't have to write a check to play in a UTR event, and everybody's playing. There'd be some sandbaggers like is in golf. Someone says, my handicap is 5, then you watch them hit the first ball off the tee. They're not a 5 handicap.
Yeah.
And same thing in tennis. There's somebody who say, I'm a 12 and UTR player, and you watch them just warm up. They're not a 12. But the way to have more tennis be played. But also, too, that the fear factor that if you stop playing, but just think about these other events, I should say other sports where, they have an off season. And, I always think Tom Brady's probably the best example. Went to Michigan. He's number 5 on the depth chart, and he was a redshirt.
Yep.
And, so, hey, kid, you don't have a backhand volley. So what are we going to do? Cross our fingers and pretend you're going to play? But I think a lot of times what happens is it's the same old problem at every level of tennis is the college coach wants to win, and they want to win now.
Sure.
And say, well, we know that, we have a good chance to win the conference if we put you in at 6, but no, we're going to have you redshirt because we don't want you to be here all 4 years and play 6. I think that's one thing in college tennis is how many people actually move up. But no, at Florida, for example, at that level, number 6s are really good players.
Yeah, I think when you get into the high levels of college tennis, you're looking at guys that have won national gold balls that maybe sometimes they're not in your lineup, but it's just super competitive, and but yeah, I think there's a pretty high level number 6s on some national championship teams.
Well, I always tease and say that a young guy can be number 2 in his dorm room, and the next year he thinks he's going to be number 1 in the world. Where a lot of a lot of the girls, they're not in lineup and they find a way to pursue something else. But that where the guy will stay versus the gal, he hangs in there longer.
I think sometimes that comes down to especially the culture too, and then obviously you gotta have passion for what you do. If you have a dream and this is what you want to do, nothing's gonna stand in your way, and you're gonna continue to work for it. And sometimes little obstacles sometimes look like big mountains to a lot of players and people, and just taking that time to reassess and really understand that, okay, this is a little obstacle, but if this is really what I want to do, I'm just gonna put my nose to the stone, and I'm gonna work, and I enjoy what I do. So, but no, I definitely think that sometimes people get a little bit, lose some confidence and lose that kind of belief, but I think there's always, if it's something that you want to do it for as long as you can.
Yeah, I think in all fairness to the coaches, more and more, I would say it's very difficult to find a kid who understands delayed gratification. So you're going to take an entire year, and we're not even thinking about you being in a lineup. In fact, you're going to show up and, you're not even going to hit a live ball. We're going to have balls tossed to you, and you hit off a ball machine. But I think one question I ask for a lot of college tennis players, say they're not in the lineup on a men's team, what they need to do is talk to the women's coach and start at the bottom. The question I ask is, would the last guy on your tennis team beat the number one player on the men? If I get the last player on the men's team, would they beat the number one player on the women's team? There's almost 5,000 colleges in the United States. For most schools, I say the answer is no. But the Macho Maligo, the last guy on the men's team, he needs to be playing anybody and everybody, but he's just pretending, That's where I think the tryout system, where there used to be walk-ons, and there'd be a walk-on tournament, and whoever won the walk-on tournament, so say you're number 12 on the intercollegiate team, and there's a walk-on tournament, a young guy who wins it shows up, or gal, and they did make it 2 out of 3. But you lose, you're off the team. Because now they get this guaranteed spot.
Yeah, I think every program is slightly a little bit different. I think 12 is a pretty big number on teams today. I don't think that. I think that there are programs that like to have that many, and some programs like that want to have as few as 8. So just depending on how the coaches want to manage the athletes and things like that. So it's always definitely interesting, with roster sizes today. But I think the more guys you have that are competitive and making sure that they're not just not on the team and they're happy to kind of wear the jersey. More guys you have that are really wanting to feel like they have that chance to play and they're wanting to practice every day. It's just going to make it better.
I've heard Ty Tucker, Ohio State, say the toughest part of his job is motivating the guys that are not in the lineup.
Sure. Yeah. It's hard. It'd be hard to, especially growing up. Tennis players are used to playing. I think the first time that, especially, there's no bench in tennis in juniors. So unless your parents pull you out of the tournament and you're saying you're not playing, but the first time that players get introduced to the bench is college tennis, which is great. Too bad there's not a bench in junior tennis. There'd probably be a little bit, you get pulled out of my youngest son gets pulled out of the soccer game for not in a bad way, but he's out of position and he's really not kind of in tune to what's going on, and he's going to sit on the bench. So if you always there's a connection between the brain and the bench. I think, hey, you know what, you're running around your forehand in the defensive area of the red zone. It'd be nice to be able to say, hey, we're subbing you out, or certain things like that. But it's definitely it's definitely a challenge to be able to keep eyes hungry, and that's where I think it's super important to be able to recruit the players that love tennis. If you get players that just love tennis, they're going to want to practice. They're gonna it doesn't just they're gonna want to play, but if they love tennis, they're gonna work and find a way to make sure they are playing. But the more student athletes that you're able to find that really have a passion for the game, and then it's going to be a lot easier to stay motivated.
Here's something that doesn't exist to my knowledge anymore. At one time in Florida, there was 32 junior college men's teams. So many foreign players. The level was very, very high. And the schools would have a tournament. So now the kids are traveling all over the country. But it's years and years ago, this goes back to the 70s, a coach would have a tournament. And you want to play his tournament, and he's going to watch you play. And you didn't necessarily have to win the tournament, but he could just see you on his campus.
Right.
So many things have changed. One thing that I really liked years ago on a college campus, say on a Tuesday, Wednesday, there's 4 people on your court, and there's a tournament. And there's going to be 2 semifinals. There's only 4 on the court. And there's going to be a final, and there's going to be a playoff for 3rd place. And if you finish 4th, a lot of academies, volunteers did this at one time, is if you finish 4, you move down. If you finish 1st, you move up. And a lot of times parents don't understand where, say you're number 12 on the tennis team, and you get a chance to play the number 1 player, and you get waxed. I mean, it's a breadstick and a bagel. And a lot of times the tennis player, they think, okay, I'm going to play him next week. Right. And you may never play him again. Yeah. Because the depth chart, you're a long ways away. But that's where I think in some ways there's too many tournaments. In this clay court, I asked, there's 256 kids in it.
Yep.
I mean, Kalamazoo was, I think it was 64. I would bet it was 64. It was on red clay in the 18s. Every match was best of 5. In the late 50s, Laver won it. So that was a mistake the USTA years ago. We weren't, as Americans, doing very well at Flamingo Park when the Orange Bowl was on clay. Well, we'll play on hard court. But, not the South Americans so much, but the Europeans would be coming over. It was wintertime. They hadn't been playing on clay, but, they grew up on it. But I think that we've made things easier where, the level 2s, 3s, and 4s, I don't know if there's a 5, 6, 7 now, whatever, but there's less tennis being played. There's not that youth versus veteran match. Everything we're mentioning, I mean, we could say, yeah, that's basic. Yeah. Get a list of phone numbers, have the kid, the young kid be able to get on the phone and say, hey, Mr. Rogers, Dr. Brown, would you like to play on Tuesday night? I have an indoor court. And those matches aren't happening.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I think, one, it delays maturity. It definitely, I remember growing up, my dad would have me play men's day. So, I'd have to go out there, and you become a lot more aware, especially of what's going on playing with whether you're playing doubles. And I played a lot of doubles with older members of the club, and you're going to become more mature. And I think that's huge with the maturity of players today, and being able to do that. I think we sometimes hear that it's hard to have phone call conversations with players. They're so used to texting, and so yeah. I mean, it's a definitely it would improve being able to have, and that's why we're kind of going back to where that league system in Germany is great, because if you're on a team and you're 17, you could be playing against a 35-year-old who's more mature they played a lot more tennis. They just have a lot more experience, and you start seeing and figuring some things out a lot, hopefully sooner than later. I think that's definitely a basic that would improve, is being able to create that kind of play in everywhere in the States, especially.
No, I think the sooner the better. My son Connor, I gotta say, he was 16, and he played on a men's team in Germany. And he was just told, they came around to match times, hey kid, This isn't practice anymore. You need to win your match tonight.
Yeah. There's definitely a little bit of,
There's a
little bit of pressure.
A little bit different than having a fellow 16-year-old tell you that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The boys on the men on the team, they say, hey, this is crunch time. We want to win, because the way the league system works, if you finish first, you move up a league. If you finish last, you move down a league.
Yeah.
I think with basics, we should talk about, and I think it was a great podcast where we had with Gideon Ariel, ground reaction force, to get set for a ball. I mean, the kids today at the tournament, I don't mean society, the kids today, but in the tournament, you got to pride yourself on being close to that baseline, taking the ball at waist level, but you got to get set to the ground. I mean, that's where the energy comes from. That's where you generate force.
Yeah, I think it starts with balance, and you think of a lot about where it's. I think that's something where you don't see a ton of efficient footwork to get set up with good balance to be able to create that force from the ground up, and but again, it comes back to, it is all related. If you have a big swing and an inefficient grip, and it's going to be, then there's timing elements involved, which then means there's timing elements involved of how your feet are going to get set up and create that balance and force through the ground. So,
well, the little kid grip. I mean, some people come to us. The little kid grip is conducive to a high bouncing ball. Now, the transition balls, the red, the orange, the green dot, yeah, in theory, they're supposed to help.
Sure.
But they really haven't. I mean, if you're in the trenches, you're pounding the nails, you're teaching tennis, kids are still hanging on the racket. The late Bud Collins, it's not a Western grip, it's an Hawaiian grip. And it's not just a grip, it's the wrist,
the elbow,
the racket's almost hitting the earlobe. But you mentioned balance for basics. When you have a high contact point, you're going to have a shorter hitting zone, and it's going to be so difficult to hit on balance.
Yep.
Tell the story, maybe you mentioned the last time you were on, with Peter Korda. There's a guy who, he could improve his serve, but, in what we call the great base, and are you a great baser? I know you and I've rolled our eyes on that one. We should call it solid fundamentals.
Yeah.
That young guy has solid fundamentals.
Yep.
Tell the story about watching him hit with his dad.
Yeah, I always just remember it as I was in Bradenton recruiting a player, and Sebi and Peter came, and they rode up on their bikes. They lived pretty close to the facility, and Sebi was probably 9, 10, and they hit for like an hour from the service line, and Peter just had Sebi just hit everything on balance, and if he was off balance, and everything very, very still, and so that's just always something. And then if you watch Sebi today, then he's incredibly balanced, and I think he's also, with that, it doesn't mean that they're not dynamic. I think sometimes, like, there's also that dynamic balance of, I have to get to this ball, and I have to be, I'm having to create that force, which then lifts me off the ground. They aren't jumping. It's they've loaded the legs, and the ground reaction is propelling them off the ground. But they're still so balanced from the waist up. Everything's super still and staying. Their head especially, everything's just still through contact, and there's no extra movements. So I think really being able to create that body awareness of balance, especially early on, is extremely crucial for players. And you can definitely tell, players who've had some balance training that they they move, for the most part, they're pretty balanced all the time.
Here's a term I share with parents. The human element. You never want to, a fellow human being, you never want to say, no, sorry, Charlie, it's too late. It's never too late. But the term burnt pancake, I ask people, hey, what do you do with a burnt pancake? They throw it away. And some, their games are far gone. It's like, we have to go back to the drawing board. Awareness, acceptance, commitment. But today, a young player that you and I spent years hitting or teaching coaching, hits the ball really well. But it'd be fun to do a research project. He served volley half the time in doubles.
Okay.
But when he served and volleyed, he shifted his head. When he stayed back, he kept his head still. And he was doing much better serving, staying back because he was keeping his head still. And the brain's so sophisticated. So it's like I'm watching this, he's got two different serves. When he serves and volleys, the head is shifting. And we know the brain's ahead of the hand. Inch by a fifth of a second, the head an inch for inch is the heaviest part of the body. It's going the wrong way. Then the brain's very sophisticated. And they're getting their serve in, but now they're serving at, 80 miles an hour.
Right.
Maybe 70. But the fear factor, it doesn't really hurt to get hit by a tennis ball.
No.
Obviously people have to protect their eyes. In certain situations, okay, I have to concede they're going to win the point. I don't need to get hit by the tennis ball. But I'll always tell people it's not a hockey puck, it's not a lacrosse ball, but there's definitely a fear factor. I think is it a fear factor of getting hit by the ball, or is it an ego factor that they're going to come in and dump the volley? And then it's overall avoidance where it's like years have gone by now. Like, yeah, you were in the 5th grade, you were in the 6th grade, you were in the 7th grade, you were in the 8th grade, you were in the 9th grade. Now you're at this tournament, 10th level. Now you're going into your senior year, and 8 years you've been playing doubles the wrong way.
Yeah, then it comes back down. Is it? I guess it would be if they don't have any. I guess it's the fear that they don't have any confidence in their volley. So, I don't know if that's just. I don't know if that's. You could say it's fear, or they just have like. They're just. It's such a foreign concept for them to even think about. So yeah.
At the clay courts today, I saw a lot of good-sized boys. It was boys tournament only. Athletic, competitive. They don't know that the light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming right at them. They're going to go a long ways down the road, and it's like Luke Jensen says, everybody ends up somewhere. And are you really going to play D1 tennis? And then do the parents know? Well, it's one thing to be able to be accepted by the school. Okay, you're going to be part of the team. No cut clause. You're on the team. Are you going to make the team? Where are you going to be in the lineup? I tell the parents all the time and their kid, go to the website. You can go to the archives and see how someone did. That's one thing about a lot of my students many of my students got in trouble for embellishing their playing background years ago. You can't really do that with the internet.
Yeah.
I tell people I played tennis like Arthur Ashe's brother, Jack Ashe. But with that, there's just so many different levels. Then are you gonna win matches at 6? Are you gonna, like most people, you could talk about this. Like, what's it mean make the tournament, college tennis?
I think everyone's a little bit different. I think at your top program tournament starts in the round of 16, so you're winning your first 2 matches of the NCAA tournament.
Then on the individual side
is obviously you're in the individual singles tournament.
And that's not easy to do. It's not really just top 64.
No, it's really not. There's a it's varied a little bit through the years, but there's regions within college tennis, and if you're top in your region and you have a national collegiate ranking, then you could be, maybe it's 118 or 90, but there's no one from your region that's in on the automatic, then you would, and I could be saying this wrong, but then you'd have that spot in. So then there's less at-large bids. So sometimes it's usually maybe the cutoff is around 46, 40, 48, and then there's some other, then you have your regional selections, and then, so yeah, it's not necessarily a true, I'm ranked 63, I'm in.
Well, I know with the Ivy Leagues, they've improved their tennis tremendously in recent years, maybe the last 10 years. But I can remember where someone would say win the Ivies, and they would be ranked like 60, 70, and they would get in the tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, it does come down to kind of a couple of little different factors. It's not a straight. I'm 1 through 64. That's you're in. So there is a little bit of variability there.
I think Wayne Bryan is. I would guess that he's retired. Read much about Wayne Bryan anymore, but he was somebody who certainly. I mean, what an amazing job he and his wife did with the two boys. But to go watch a college tennis match. There's so many juniors, the parents, I say, instead of going to a tournament, why don't you skip this weekend and go watch a college tennis match?
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it's a great learning environment for a lot of players and coaches and parents to really understand the level of college tennis, the environment. For players to come up and watch a University of Florida match, the level is going to be really good, 1 through 6. And anyone that Florida's playing against, the level is going to be pretty good, 1 through 6. So really having an eye-opening experience to really understand the level and really kind of like you said, like, oh, let's look at the roster. Wow, this guy who's playing number 6, he was top 10 in the U.S. Dang, that's and he's playing 6. So the depth and the level of college tennis is. It's really, really strong. So really, encourage anyone who has, aspiring to play college tennis and you haven't seen a college tennis match.
Oh, my son
go
Connor,
see a college tennis match.
He played for you when you were at Florida State, and he transferred to Ohio State. He played 6 his junior year, and they had 3 guys that were not in the lineup that had ATP points.
Yeah.
So again, don't want to discourage anyone, but it's like you can get there, but the sooner the better that you start on basics. The formula from Vic Braden: winning. Confidence comes from winning. Winning comes from skill. Skills come from practice and know-how. And I think people are short on practice when we're talking about your children, Bryan Shelton's son playing other sports, being a quarterback, with becoming an athlete first. But it's fundamentals. I think a lot of tennis kids early on, and I think we were making a mistake in tennis by not having cross training. I think tennis coaches that are working with kids, the early childhood development, should have about basketballs and soccer balls and say, okay, we're doing this, and this, and we're working on all these different things to become an athlete. Like in in Russia. You go to an indoor center in Russia, it's very common that one tennis court, there's no tennis on that court. It's just all gymnastics.
Sure.
And they're treated like athletes.
Yep.
And there's intensity with the little kids class. It's not glorified babysitting.
Right.
But they just started at a very early age. The USTA, there's been so many things over the years. At one time, I think this was back when Doug McCurdy, not that he was the one who implemented this at all, but they dropped 12 and under rankings. And then what happened was,
I didn't have there was not a 12s national when I was growing up.
So 14s.
Yeah, we used to have what was called the Mayor's Cup. So
What's that?
Basically, it was a term of, it was I can't. I might be saying it, but basically, after you played sectionals, which I grew up in the South, so I was in Southerns, and they had all the sectionals around the country. You were selected to, if you depending on where you finished, maybe it was like top 6 or top 5 or something like that. Then you were selected to this cup, but there was no national 12s like there is right now with 128 or however big the draws are. So my first national event wasn't until I was 13, being able to play 14s nationals, which for me and the boys was in San Antonio, Texas. So there was not a national like there are today. So I don't know. And that changed not too long. I was still playing juniors when I think that changed. I think my youngest sister maybe played 12s nationals. But yeah, there wasn't 12s nationals when I was growing up.
So obviously the Spaniard, I think he was 6th in the world, Jose Garris. I'm sure you spent a lot of time around because he had big influence on the USTA. Was he with the USTA when you were there?
Yeah, sure. Spent a lot of time with Jose.
He had a great line. 12-year-olds, someone's got to win. It's like, if there's 64 12-year-olds in a tournament, who's going to win? One 12-year-old. And I mean, on these podcasts, we've talked about hockey. My background was, you're 12, you're a peewee. The division before that, you're called a squirt. It's not high performance. It's not world class. But then the number of matches, the UTR was set up based on the French system, so it would be less travel, more match play, making tennis less expensive. I think going way back, I remember saying this in a meeting with the USTA, or Jose Aguirre saying, that's a great idea. But then he wasn't in charge because he's in player development. And the idea was to have a form tournament, because we've done that for years with camps. We took Dennis Vandermeer's idea of having prizes, took Welly Van Horn's, hit, hold, balance, checkpoints, check the checkpoints, then Braden information. And we, on the very first day of this camp, where we put all these different systems together at Tyler Junior College, they had a gym for these girls that performed halftime at the Super Bowl. It was just covered with mirrors. We spent the first day in that gym. And by the time the kids left, we had a staff that trained 9 months to be part of that camp.
Right.
So it was a very unique setting. But then do people stay the course? Do they have someone who can hold their hand through the progression? And, kids, they in the end, they need to have fun, but say, okay, this is a form tournament. And now we're going to go play lightning ball, dodgeball. We're going to have some fun.
Right.
We're going to throw water balloons at each other. We're going to play tag. But to have kids play tennis the wrong way, it's almost like having little kids say, okay, you're going to ride this bicycle that's taller than you are. They're not going to ride the bicycle.
Right.
So tennis does need to be scaled down. Now, years ago, people just take a wooden racket. I think that's where the red ball, the orange ball, it's kind of an insult to old coaches where, you just take a wooden racket back in the day, you cut it off. And the rule is you have to hit the ball soft. You cannot hit the ball hard. And then you play mini tennis. The USTA, there's lots of money being spent. I was in charge of a tennis program at a public facility, and they wanted to downsize how many clay courts they had. And I said, well, this is what could be done. And the USTA, they put in almost 100,000. The college put in almost 100,000. And then this is in Tampa, they have all these 36-foot courts. And I'm thinking, really, do they really need to do that? The service line is 42 feet. And now, pickleball is invading tennis. But with basics, coming back to doubles, we beat up some kids today. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but if everybody were to play 15 minutes of ghost doubles, we had Ed Krass on one of these podcasts, he made it a game, one-on-one doubles. Or we could say, okay, we're going to play one bounce doubles. And then the rules will change the tactics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've done this for years with tennis players. Okay, you're going to play a match. The first set, you random number. First set, you're going to have, you each can hit 3 ground strokes. That means a total of 6 ground strokes. Serve, return, 6 ground strokes. Then we're going to reduce it. The next, it's 3 ground strokes. And then the next, no ground strokes. Okay, we'll play short sets.
Yep.
But we're going to force you to go forward.
Yep. Yeah, you got to find ways to trick players. 15 minutes of ghost doubles. I think another one is just playing straight ahead. You can go back to even do it with the serve. It'll help the player stay sideways. They have a tendency to open up, but then still have them go forward, serve and volley. Have them work on that first volley, keeping it right in front of them, holding the line. And that's another great way. Also, if they have a tendency to run around their backhand volley, it's like, no, if it comes straight at you, you're just taking a backhand volley and just going forward. And I think keeping things really, really simple. I think that'd be another basic that I would talk about is keeping things simple. Don't try and add any extra sauce or, the athletes, they're going to have their own individuality with everything that they do. So I think just keeping everything, extremely basic, extremely simple. I think you look at, as we've talked through this, I was just thinking, you look at running backs in football. The quarterback, they're gonna this way every time. It's not like they're handing it off like under their armpit. It's right in the gut, and their hands are a certain way. We talked about how the basics catching skills of, you look at baseball players today. They're still. It's not like they're, if they have time and they're not in an awkward position, they're still having their opposite hand, spot the catching hand. So I think there's definitely those basics for everything, and you can find it at the highest levels. It's just understanding with just being brilliant with those basics, because they are going to stand. You're going to keep having to repeat them.
I ask kids all the time, do you know what a fumble is? And they don't know. American kid not knowing what a fumble is. I tell girls, you need to watch football with your dad. No, I tell people if a running back takes the handoff from the quarterback and they just have one hand on the ball going up the middle, everybody, 100,000 people in the stadium are going to be going crazy because they just know.
Yep.
But to me, when a kid is taking a routine ball, baseline to baseline, and they're missing wide, it's a fumble. It's a mistake, and for that unforced error, they have to win 2 points to be back at even.
Right.
Excuse me, they make an unforced error, they have to win 2 points to be ahead by 1. So it's just the unforced errors just kill people.
Yeah, I think going back to those basics is really how do you. We talked about the tram lines, or the percentage post and percentage line, and is really putting that up on a daily basis to where it becomes where the kids players start seeing the court that way, being able to even if you miss outside of those tram lines and the ball's still in, it's still out. So then they understand margins, and they understand that in things. But yeah, you're behind just being able to stay calm in the rally. That's a basic. Being able to, can you rally? There's some even advanced players that can't rally 100 balls in a row. Being able to just consistently rally, being in good position, having, we talked about having good balance and having good forces coming from the ground is, can you just hit the ball back in the big blue or whatever color is the court these days? Can you hit it back and forth?
I had a parent who you know well, you've worked with his kids. We have together for years and years now, and he sent me, you get a text message, boom, you look at it, and he said, this T-shirt sums up the tournament, meaning the Clay Court Nationals, and it said widespread panic. Widespread panic. But when Matt referred to the half a court, that's 13 and a half feet, and you just play straight ahead.
Play straight ahead.
No, I've done it before where someone, if they miss wide, they automatically lose the game.
Yeah.
But I think one of the toughest drills, talk about basics, is just keep the racket in the alley. We'll have people, we do it where they drop hit in the alley, or they do double hits in the alley. But you say, go play a set in the alley. They're going to come back in just a few minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty quick.
Because they can't. But really good players. Years ago at Forest Hills, when the grass was bad, you'd watch these good players because the alley, the grass was good.
Right.
They'd go over there and they would hit. With, hitting the target, accountability, like what just happened. I think many players, they leave the court. Something that's a basic on stats is just the plus minus.
Right.
When they leave the court, if they won, they played well. If they lost, they didn't play well. And really, they played the same. It's just, who they played, and, you think the differential and the emotions but that would be a basic, is do you know the plus minus? Do you know how to chart a match? We tell people, put a clipboard, and, we've been told that if you use a pen and write, you have a better chance of remembering versus if you're typing it, say, on your phone. And you're turn the tennis channel on here in the U.S., just, we're down to 10 points now. It used to be 20. 10 points for one player serving, 10 points for the other, and then chart like what happened. Actually watch the pros.
Yeah, really, I think that especially with technology today, and you see those flash up on TV when you're watching matches, is some numbers here and there where they're serving, and I think with technology today, there's really cool apps that will kind of chart the matches for you. There's one that's called Swing Vision that's really neat, that you can put it on your phone and it'll basically it'll chart the match for you, so it's instant. Now that's also taking away from a player sitting there learning to chart, but it's giving them the information so when they come off where it's instant, which is great. And then a friend of ours, Warren Pretorius, has a company, Tennis Analytics, that has millions of matches and points of data that. But I think with a basic is film. I think that's a big one, from whether it's practices to. It's definitely a basic in the NBA, and it's definitely a basic in the NFL and college football is going over film, watching where mistakes are made, watching where good things are happening, so then it creates that awareness for that player to understand and increase their IQ and make better decisions on the court. Obviously, film is like looking in the mirror. It's an out-of-body experience, so you are seeing is believing a lot of the time. So instead of the coach being like, man, I'm telling you, like, you have to do this better. You're changing direction of the ball from too deep in the court, and and they keep doing it. Well, then it's finally, if you can put it in their face, and then it's like, oh, wow. That's sometimes what it takes a lot, or being able to look at a stat of, really again, we're talking about awareness of, hey, I'm serving out wide on the ad side 62% of the time, but I'm only winning 38%. And I serve up the tee 30%, and I'm winning 80%. Well, I'd say you'd want to reverse those, especially if the winning percentage is. So it's really, I think there's so many opportunities, especially with the technologies that we have today, for players to gain a better tactical understanding of some statistics, and hopefully, the coaches that are helping and can be able to, create a plan, an application to be able to, help those players see and understand and develop their games better.
For our listeners, Warren Pretorius was on one of our podcasts. I'd recommend to go back and listen to it if you haven't. Bright guy. For us, we film someone's serve, and then we say, okay, make a poster of Don Leary's word picture method. It's his concept. He wrote a book called The Teaching Pro. And we have different images and say that he used, like from the ground up. Dennis Vandermeer used to have 2 bathroom scales. Weight forward on bathroom scale 1, bring weight back on bathroom scale 2. Front foot's like the mashed potato, pivot foot in basketball. And it just, it's as many images as letters in the alphabet. Then you hang a string from the ceiling, put a little piece of tape at your outstretched arm and racket, put up mirrors, get a tripod, film it, get a practice log, and do it twice a day, just for a few minutes in your garage, your basement, spare room. And then we ask kids, do they do it? I mean, we tell people, if you're following our program to the nth degree, this is how you follow, this is how you do it. And I mean, I would say someone at the University of Florida, incoming freshman, they're going to change their serve. They need to, on top of having the academics handled and being challenged, coming out of high school, now being on college campus, is that you have to really do those type of things to make changes. Oh. And you have to isolate, and, it's like Tom Brady, the quarterback, he's doing the same thing when he takes a snap, same crossover, same plant that his dad taught him when he was in elementary school.
Yep.
I think that's one thing that's really missing in tennis, where look at the other sports. And if you go from one sport to the next on your campus, University of Florida, every sport's going to be just working on basics.
Yeah, I mean that's where it's at. You're gonna
fundamentals.
You're gonna every day. You're gonna just like routines. What are your routines? That's very basic. That's very 101. How good are your routines? And
then are you switched on? One of our parents, he was here visiting, and I said, hey, there's 2 things that you've said that I use all the time. He refers to, you're the author of your own story. He says, well, how's this movie going to end up? Some kid's playing out, hey, how's your movie going to end up? But he also says, are you a switched on kid?
Yep.
and the brain will produce myelin at a faster rate if you're switched on. But that does the tennis kid, because parents can find tournaments at every level. There's no fear of getting cut. I ask kids now, what's it mean to get cut? That's a basic principle in sport, and they don't know what it means. You mean you get cut?
You mean do I need a Band-Aid for it?
Right, am I going to bleed? Because there's going to be a piece of paper, there's going to be a list of names, and you're going to be at the bottom of the list, and they're going to take a scissors, they're going to cut the list, and there's 20 kids out here trying out, and they're only keeping 10.
Right.
They don't know how that works.
Yeah, no, it's that we were talking about it a little bit earlier. Is I think that's the first time, especially from a tennis standpoint, is the first time that a tennis player will feel that kind of the bench is where you have only 6 spots, at least from a singles lineup perspective, and you only have 6 spots for doubles, and some players will play only singles, some players will only play doubles, some players won't play either. You might only have your 6 singles players are playing 6 the doubles as well. So, and depending on the size of your team, whether it's 8, 9, 12, 15, there's only 6 guys who can play singles. So there's going to be someone sitting out, and that's the first time that sometimes players experience that. So it's definitely, I'm a fan of. I wish there was more of a bench in junior tennis.
I like one of your lines, though. They've never been on a big stage, or this is to them a big stage. A friend of ours, Dr. Dom Lausick, he was here. I say dumb and lousy. That a friend of his has this 9-year-old daughter, and I think the older brother, it really could be a special setup where they practice together. And she's been a gymnast. She's won a national title in the vault.
Okay.
She's 9 years old. So she shows up and she has no stage fright. She's not afraid to raise her hand and ask, and
Sure.
no insecurities with the people that are around her. And there's so many intangibles that need to be taught. But I felt that today, that the kids just, like national clay courts, this is the big deal. And, but the sooner the better you can have a kid overcome stage fright. We do it where, okay, get in front of everybody, tell a joke, tell a story, sing a song.
Dance.
Dance. There you go. I did that today. You were there. They were not very good dancers, but the thing is they all did it. And It's like, what's the big deal? Just you got to dance for 5 seconds.
Yep.
They look at you shocked.
Yep.
And, you could just see them get, again, widespread panic. But no one's saying that you have to be ready for America's Got Talent. Let's just see you dance a little bit. That's something too, where, kids, I say, let's see you just take a basketball, zigzag, go with your right hand, now go with your left hand, go backwards. We work in a gym every Saturday, and we take the kids to the beach, take the kids to the track. And the thing is that then they're just visiting.
Sure.
Are they going to go home and be clever? Go, okay, they made us do this with a basketball. They made us do this with a soccer ball. And we say, go home and do the driveway workout. Get an old racket from a garage sale. I guess. Yard sale. And you get an old racket, you just get one. Go in your backyard, throw it, and then work on the running technique that we showed you.
Go get it.
You don't need to be at you need to take the program home with you.
Right.
And take ownership. And then that's the whole thing, be the independent thinker and the problem solver.
Yeah, no, it's really important. I was actually, a couple of the kids that are my daughter's age, the parents, 10-year-old parents, they're going through the tennis for the first time, and it's kind of their, we need, any coaches in the area? Well, yeah, I know coaches, a lot of coaches everywhere, but what you have to do is you have to be creative. You have to be able to, they don't constantly need a coach with them. They know routines, like you were just saying. Do you have any? How many rackets? Oh, I only have one racket. Well, does your mom have a racket? Yeah. Does your dad have a racket? Yeah. Does your brother have a racket? Yeah. Well, that's 4 rackets. You can go throw those in the yard. Don't throw them on the concrete, but go throw them in the yard. Or, just being. Is there a wall that you can hit on? Just having that passion to figure out, I'm going to find a way. having that competitiveness to be able to say this is something that I want to do. But I mean, again, I think where everything's so instant, you know, you said it's hard for kids today with delayed gratification. I think, you know, you used to not be able to, you know, if you went overseas, you wouldn't be talking to your parents for, you know, weeks until you got on a payphone. Well, now you can FaceTime your parents once you land, and everything is instant. So it's definitely finding that trickery to be able to, but again, it does come down to that individual. If the one, is he gonna him or her gonna be able to, you know, put the phone down or turn the TV off or the iPad and like, hey, I'm going to get better at this. And so,
Well, you're the older brother. I'm the younger brother. Mark Costello, I've known Mark Costello almost 60 years now. I hear from him all the time. He's coached ice hockey as long as I've coached tennis. We grew up together and went through a different set of circumstances. I said, you know, I don't know. I'm going to make a living. What am I going to do? I wasn't going to make the NHL. So short story long, long story short, we're both withdrawing from school, dropping out at the same age. And I remember saying, Costello, you can't drop out. You're the older brother. I said, I can drop out. I'm the younger brother. And one of the reasons I could drop out is they dropped the draft, where if I had dropped out like the year before, you'd be going to Vietnam.
yeah.
But I was going to go to Florida and make a way in tennis. So I think Dennis Vandermeer had the line, be your brother's keeper. And that doesn't exist. That's a basic principle. We'll go back to basics. Do you have leadership within a program? Are the older players pulling the younger players? A lot of times to keep everybody happy. I don't know the key to success, but I know the key to failure, make everybody happy. So the groups. The older kids, they don't know the younger kids. They can't even say hello to them because they don't even know their names.
Sure.
So you've got, okay, we're the top hotshot 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And they don't even know the 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. We have all start together. And so just hang out. We'll eventually get it going. But I do think that, you know, be your brother's keeper. We have a young boy here. Tomorrow will be his 6th day. And I'll ask him tomorrow, be your brother's keeper. Like just treating him like I'm the older brother. Say, come here. Did you go to the website? We have this course called GreatBase. I think it's 17 5-minute films. Did you watch it? No. That's what I'm betting on because he's 0 for 5. I said, we have another course that is about the same length. Actually, it's shorter, but it's still 5-minute videos. And you know it backwards and forwards. And someone that, you know, we spent a lot of time with, Victor Lillo, he was there for 5 years so he's on this film and he's hitting off the cone at age 8 and he's age 13 and he's a national champion. Oh, he won the Orange Bowl. He won the La Petite. And, you know, that's what you have to do. And it's free. It's free. Now that you've been here, you know, the videos will come alive more. They'll kind of jump out. Mike Larscheid said that. Well, they've been here, then they go to the videos. But I think parents just think, well, somebody else has to do it. You know, Cole Reeves had him on as a guest. And, you know, this is not to say, okay, we're going to shock the tennis world, but, you know, it's almost like eliminate the pro. Instead of, you don't need to go see a pro every day. You know, you're playing other sports, you can come home and go, they showed me what to do on the forehand. You know, I just take my racket and I just trace it against the fence, the basic routines. And then you got to do it over and over again. Just because then you get bored with it because you understand it intellectually, but no, you got to own it instinctually.
Yep.
And these wall exercises, it's no different than a kid, okay, I got to be able to dribble the basketball in and out of the cones. But tennis kids just think, well, I'll just play.
Yeah, there's a reason Steph Curry is Steph Curry.
Yeah.
You know, he's gonna go work on his basic shot, and you know, and then he's gonna go work on his first step dribble to his right with a basic shot. Then he's gonna work on his first step dribble to his left with a basic shot. He's gonna hit. You know, he's not gonna leave the gym till he hits 100 threes. So, you know, you think of Pete Sampras, arguably one of the best servers in the world. He'd hit 100 serves every day. So that's just where it's. And again, it's just because it depends on the level that you're at. But if you're 8 years old and you need to, you know, obviously an 8-year-old's going to need guidance and leadership but hey, you need to do this on your forehand every day. You need to do this on your forehand volley, your backhand volley, on your overhead. Then you just create that discipline, and I think that's the other basic is discipline. You know, you got to have discipline. You know, you can't. It's one thing. You can be passionate about something, but if you don't have the discipline to, and with the accountability or having someone lead you and teach you how to be disciplined, then, you know.
Yeah, rule one. With discipline, we always ask, the pain of discipline and pain of regret, one lasts a lifetime. Going back with Nick Kyrgios, I read where three fantastic players offered to coach him, and it was Connors and McEnroe, which I wasn't surprised by, but Sampras.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's true, but I read that. So, I heard Jim Courier, that's where he said, well, no one's going to volley like Sampras again, where he comes in and the racket faces flat. And that's where we have to look at film. What are they doing at the impact point with, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's where, I mentioned Sam Querrey or, Nick Kyrgios finessing the volleys. They're making, what are they making? This guy's making $20,000 a week on the average. This guy's,
They do so many things so well. Just so many times trying to take. There's times where I think it's understanding taking speed off the ball, and where you watch pro players today. And again, we talk about finessing balls. It's just there's time that you need to actually finesse it a little bit, because you're going to have to, do you have the hands and skills, but can you do both? Can you come in and...
No, you have to be able to
do both.
Welby Van Horn, you have to be able to improvise within a fundamental range of correction.
Exactly.
Vic Braden, you can't violate physical laws. Remember Vic, young player, he did quite well in college tennis, and remember Vic saying he's got to learn to hit some balls 30 miles an hour. Take speed off of it and be able to, okay, I have to finesse this low one-handed backhand approach.
Yeah.
There's some more variable. I was told by Bill Jacobs at one time there's more variables in tennis than there are in chess. But say like a TFO, he's doing so well, and you've read where Wayne Ferrer is really, got him off the cell phone, like you said earlier, making him be more professional. What's he doing with his time? Now TFO and Fritz, Coco Gauff, think about winning the Grand Slam, but then at the same time winning multiple number of Grand Slams. Like I read our fact checker, I think it's 34. Chris Evert has the record for being in the most finals.
Men or women?
Yeah, where she,
Djokovic, which is what, 30, or what's he at now, 32?
Yeah, he just surpassed, I think, the Fed, right?
Fed, yeah.
But Everett could hit the ball so deep. And her game, certainly she's on her forehand, she could play side spin, she could do a number of different things, but she had balance. She had a good contact point. She had a long follow through. This term, old school, I believe it was the girl who got to the finals from Tunisia.
Jabor.
Where
Yeah.
somebody in her booth had the shirt said old school. I was asked that today at the tournament. Somebody said, yeah, look at your content, and it's really helping our junior program. Have an academy. And, I hear that it's old school. And I go, no, old school, new school, there is no school. Certainly you could say it's old school, but it's just fundamentals. It's just fundamentals, and fundamentals stand the test of time.
Yeah, no, brilliant with basics, and you just, from level to level, the only thing that changes is the speed at which you have to execute the basic. So if the basics are a little bit off in the beginning, or a lot off, it's going to be harder to execute those basics when when it's coming really fast at you.
Let's just talk about a couple more things. Time. Young kid comes in, his mother's here. The daughter's in the 12 nationals. The son is tagging along. Don't know this, but we're working with them. We filmed the daughter, but we made the film and told the mother, no, just let her go play the tournament. But the son, we just go to work. We actually did a second filming, a post-filming today. So he's been here for a few days, and he's going to a tournament.
Oh, jeez.
He's going to a level 6, up in age group. And I go, well, why are you going to a tournament? He goes, I got to get points. And I go, no. Your game will get you points. Points won't get you game.
That's right.
You need to work on your game.
Yep.
But I think that people are so even at a high level in juniors, there has so much apprehension of taking some time off.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to see a bigger picture. I think that's something that you have to be able to, see down the line and understand that, not be afraid of change. So many times people are more afraid of change and instead of they're more afraid to change than afraid to do anything else. So they need to. I think you look at even Nadal's serves improved so much throughout his career. He's made multiple changes through it, and even Djokovic, went through a period of time where he's a full palm up serve. So, yeah, I mean, I think as long as you're willing to put the work in and understand that sometimes it might get a little bit worse before it gets better, but if it's getting better, that's a good thing.
When you were coming up in junior tennis, there was no UTR. So now I guess the magic number is 6 if you you lose more than 6 games. So if it's 2-2, you beat somebody 2-2, your UTR can go up. But if it's whatever,
yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
But with that, obviously, when you were younger coming up, you could play a match, lose the first set, and go, "I got this." Now the third set's a 10-point tiebreaker. And now if you lose that first set, your UTR goes down. And it's I always tell people there's a lot of things in tennis that are crazy, but you don't have to be crazy.
Yeah.
Just basics. When it comes down to, Agassi, I think, said it quite well. Move your feet. Just all these short sentences. Move your feet, get in position, have a good contact point, take a good swing, do a big target, and breathe. And you just and repeat. It's like how's it when you wash dishes or you rinse and repeat or whatever.
Yeah.
Just over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's.
There's no entertainment value.
No, you gotta be okay just doing the same boring thing over and over. But at the end of the day, no one gets bored of winning.
Yeah, Vic Braden, rats. I won again.
Yeah.
But with what you're saying though, big picture. I think also too with one's work ethic is the bigger the dream, the bigger the work ethic.
For sure.
But they really need to know time management. That this is going to take time. Anything worthwhile. It's just like, some kid plays the piano, they're not ready for Carnegie Hall.
Well, and they're also they have to understand time, but they have to understand that they have to work like they don't have time, but they have time. They have to have that work ethic of, gosh, I have to take care of this. But the other thing too is how long is this going to take? Well, if you're thinking like that, then it's not the right way to think. It's just like, I'm going to get this. This is what I'm going to do. But if you're kind of, once you start putting a little bit of a timetable on it, then there is a life expectancy on it. And so once they start hitting that, I can do this for 3 weeks, no problem. But then when it's like, I've done it for 3 weeks, it's not where it needs to be. Like, then the widespread panic sits in even more. So they got to understand that it's not a quick fix.
Well, your father Ernie, who's been a tennis pro forever, we worked with Harry Hopman. Well, one, there's a lot to be said about fitness. Getting to the ball, being able to just go out and 3 hours later you're fresh as a daisy.
Yeah.
But you think your dad being in the Carolinas and Dennis Vandermeer being based in Hilton Head for so many years. Dennis would teach the serve and the overhead. You teach the volley. And then you say, okay, now just turn like for a volley and just go around. Just make a C. Okay, now you know how to play doubles. And, we talk about doubles today. You start off, you have a serve. Talking about players at Wimbledon, you have a serve, you have a return. Can you hit a volley? Can you hit an overhead? And if it then go and play the right way. We play doubles all the time where we say you can't poach. Just automatic return cross court, don't poach, so the player can learn to volley.
Right.
Singles, you talked about depth. Can you hit deep, wait for the short ball? Like today, I didn't really see approach shots. They weren't hitting approach shots with the idea that they could volley.
Yeah, it's a lot of, I think even, you don't see as many conventional approach shots. You see a lot of maybe sometimes hit and run. So they're playing I guess it's an offensive shot from a defensive position. They put the player in a defensive position, and they're hitting and running. That is a way to get to the net, but there was a lot of short ball opportunities to be able to play approach shots on and get in, but then can you play one volley deep, and then can you set yourself up instead of, I think too many times you see it a lot where, you see it a lot in college, you see it a lot in juniors. I think you'll even see it at a certain level at the pros, but they'll get in and they're thinking like, I'm supposed to finish the volley on the first shot. Instead of like, no, well, depending on where you're at, are you taking the ball below net level? Or is it what's your proximity to the net? What's the play here? It's still, you treat it just like it's a ground stroke. I'm going to hit the ball deep, and then there's an approach shot to set up the point. So maybe you play a first volley to set up your second volley, or hopefully you're getting an overhead to finish the point. So understanding that, you hear a 2-ball pass. I'm going to make him volley on the first to set myself up on the second pass for a better passing shot. It's the same thing when you're coming to the net, a basic concept of, a first volley to set up a second volley.
Vic Braden used to always talk about the anxiety level. The anxiety goes way up when they go to the net. The approach shot becomes an anxiety shot.
Yep.
You got to trust your volley. You got to value volley position. We just draw an X in the service box, as you know, call it the treasure. I saw so many kids today, and a lot of it's going to be because of the grip, the angle of the rack face, the elbows in, and again, they have to finesse the volley. They can't. You can tell by the sound of the ball being hit. They're not, the term be hit by a stick. They're not sticking the volley with. But then also too, when basics, the kids lose, the kids win, they leave the court, they don't stretch.
Yeah, just routines. What's the routine? What's the professionalism of how am I gonna warm up? How am I gonna take care of myself during the match from an eating routine? How am I toweling in between points? How am I, just there's so many different kinds of little routines, but then just as you were talking about, what am I doing after the match to take care of my body to make sure I can play again the next day at the level that I want to? Whether it's going for a light jog, whether it's hopping on a bike, how soon am I eating after my match to make sure that, so again, there's so many, that's kind of the details that when you see, I think we were talking about it earlier, is just the professionalism. That's just another level of professionalism, taking care of all those details, not only on the court, but the prior, before the court and after the match.
Steve Denton, he was watching a player today, watching many players. He's there from sun up to sundown. I think he's the first guy there, the last guy to leave. So he's coaching at Texas A&M. He was a guest on one of our podcasts. So, he's just telling me the 2 players he was looking at. One player he never heard of. And he was very, very good overall. Ball striking, he was very good. Just stood out. Clean, which means efficient, least amount of moving parts, least amount of muscle recruitment. But the boy he's playing against is one big in the 12s, big in the 14s, not as much in the 16s. And then the question is, how's he going to do? So,
sure.
I'm sure he's got, as what Steve was saying, he's got a handful of gold balls. A lot of listeners should realize is that there's a good chance that young guy, great competitor, good legs, he's going to go to a very good school, play bottom of the lineup, and not even being considered to play doubles. And I heard one of our friends say that he thought Michael Chang was the fastest player ever. And what a great player, where he was, won the French, 17, top 10 in the world.
I have 2.
And remember watching his brother Carl coach him at Costa de Casa, California. I heard a story where he was working with Stevie Johnson and Sam Querrey, and he called the guys in and he said, guys, I was a baseliner, but I came to the net way more than you guys. But as great a champion as he was, they weren't asking him, well, he could play doubles. Some of the players play college tennis, and we always, from Jim Rogers, college tennis is the goal, pro tennis is the dream. that if you want to be able to contribute to the team, you have to be able to play doubles, and that needs to start
early
in kindergarten.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not. And it's I guess we could wrap it up here. We talk about basics. To get to college tennis, I think we're trying to make a contribution with free content. I mean, I'd say one thing, you say another, we'll wrap it up here. But to me, young, old tennis coaches need to know the Welby Van Horn balance formula. This is how your body, you're just being tossed a ball, static balance, which is pretty much non-existent now.
Yep.
This is the body balance position. This is how you ideally should end up. Are you going to be able to do that every time? Of course not. But that would be one. That's okay. That's a way to help. Because we're at an American Junior Tournament today. That'd be pretty basic. What would come to your list?
I think another basic would just be, I think we were just talking about it, but I think discipline. It takes discipline to be balanced. Can you come out here and can you, when the coach is asking you to do this, can you do it? And
well, I think all routines of discipline, shadow swing in front of the mirror, hit off a cone, go drop hit balls, self-fed.
Yeah.
You don't need it. You just find an empty tennis court, get up early, put it on the
jump rope. I need to run. I got to build my legs. I have to be able to, discipline of eating. Just that discipline and that creating that sense of professionalism early is huge. Going to be able to, it's just going to lead to more. It's just going to make you better.
No, like say it. I'm sure they do different versions of it at the University of Florida, but the tiebreaker test. Okay, boys, let's have a tournament.
Yeah.
And let's just set these targets up and then feed the ball, Harry Hopman style, Robert Lansdorp, crank the ball and make it competitive. But then kids do that on their own.
Sure.
We'd make that a tournament. You and I have done that many times in camp settings, and kids love it. It goes too fast.
Right.
If you have some really good players, you need a couple baskets of balls.
Yeah.
But that would be one for me is target tennis. If it was a form tournament first, and then target tennis. And it's like, how well do you do in the form tournament? And then make the connection between the form tournament and the target tournament.
Yeah.
I think also, too, get the stopwatch out. The running.
It's huge.
And you can do it where we talked about the kid playing 3 hours of defense on basketball, but playing soccer, play a little bit every day. I know when Connor was with you, your team at Florida State with Dwayne Holquist, you guys would warm up with a tennis ball playing soccer.
Yeah, you see that. You see that at a lot of levels, whether it's pro events, college. I think another basic would just be going back would be play other sports. Have that. There's a lot of things are going to translate that are going to help you, and I think that'd be something that would be, even at an older age. We've talked about Coach Shelton and Ben loves playing basketball, and whether it's just going to shoot in the gym by himself or just playing a little bit of pickup ball, you always have to be careful with going up for a rebound, rolling ankles or things like that. But again, being able to, go out and play, go do different things.
I spent a lot of time at Baltieri's, and I used to love to go and watch Tommy Haas play basketball. No, I don't know basketball, but I think this guy could play D1 basketball.
Pretty good athlete.
With Marty Fish and Andy Roddick, they did that for fitness. Yeah. It's a lot more fun than...
Absolutely. You still got to put in the hard yards, but that's definitely a way to... make it more fun and create and it also it takes your mind off of the tennis a little bit, but you're getting better and having something that you're doing.
Well, really, in the end, too. I mean, a kid needs to know brain memory. It's not muscle memory. You're programming your brain, and the sooner you can do this. But that's where trickery. Hey, kid, you want to do this? You got to do that. No, okay, we're going to play lightning ball, but we have to do all this first.
Right.
But I think another thing too is a grading system. With like you said, the strength of the individual is going to come out. There's going to be individuality, but kids know how to get A's in school. okay, I got to sit in class. Maybe the front row would be better, but I got to take notes. There's going to be a test. And they just accept A is excellent, B is good, C is average, D is poor, F is unacceptable. But they should be getting a grade all the time in tennis. And they should be able to self-grade themselves. Are they doing the routines? And it's very basic.
Right.
And but in school, a kid that's their workplace. They're regulated. If you don't do your homework, now, everybody starts with a clean slate. I mean, for 10 years, I had people in an academic setting. Everybody starts with a clean slate. Well, you're tardy. You didn't hand your homework in, and you get a zero averaged in. That it's going to be tough to get an A.
Yep.
But tennis kids, they don't have any of that system, any grading system until it's, okay, now I'm in a tournament. And I use the term, they break like glass, they freak out. And, I think brain typing, I'm very structured. A J is, okay, this is how it needs to be. Now, you need to have a team of coaches, and you don't want everybody to be a J.
Right.
But if you're a J, you need to realize, okay, they need to play some soccer here. They need to play some lightning ball. They need to do some fun things. But I think what happens too many times is that kids are, it's abusive, really, that they're having fun, but that fun's not leading to anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just organized chaos.
Yeah. Don't mistake activity for learning.
Yeah, John Wooden. There is a guy, that should still be studied. And to go back and I know nothing about basketball, but the Dream Team. There's other countries around the world, supposedly, that, they perhaps can't compete with the Americans because of the physical specimens that we have to choose from. But, whether it's the former Yugoslavia, where Argentina, whatever, there's some places in the world, Spain, and how are they coaching basketball? And they have to go back and study people who've been very successful at it.
Right.
And, I think also, too, is that your situation now going back to college tennis, it's recruiting and development.
Yep.
What I've done for years is just development. There's no recruiting. This is who you're coaching. And I think that's something, too, that Braden used to always say that how you judge a program is how the kid who takes the ice cream cone and puts it in the middle of the floor. That's how you measure a program.
Right.
With the USTA, you weren't really part of that, but they have what's called ID coaches, right? ID staff. They identify talent.
I think as all of us as national coaches, we were, always constantly identifying. I think in some of the coaches in the younger age groups, where some of the coaches working with our 12 and under boys or 12 and under girls, it's definitely trying to keep an eye out for as many players as possible. So I think that's making sure that it's not, okay, here's a 12-year-old he's the only one we're gonna help, or we're only, so I think it's having a very broad base. And
but such a big country, apologize if I interrupted,
Sure.
but such a big country, you're just choosing kids that are doing pretty well, and let's say the 10s and 12s. It's not like you're finding this country kid who hasn't even been to tournaments.
Yeah, I think that there were, through the sections, there were what we called sectional camps, where that was always trying, in the regional camps. Obviously COVID, put a lot of different kind of stopped a lot of things in a lot of organizations, but that was but you'd have in those sectional camps, you'd have a bigger place where maybe the kid wasn't playing nationals, but they were at that sectional level that you could see them for the first time, or something like that. So those are I know are coming back online, or trying but yeah, it's not an easy thing for sure, finding watching out for players, giving players those opportunities. But yeah, those are some ideas with some of the camps that they were trying to do.
I think with proactive parents, I know a lot of parents, they don't want to be the coach, but save a lot of money if you could just regulate it, and you tell your kid, okay, if you want to do this, you got to do that. I think parents, if they were to say, okay, let's go with, say initially it's a wide number of sports. They get down to the point where they're a little bit older and say it's 2 sports, you choose one and we choose one. And I think the parent would choose swimming or golf or tennis, a lifelong sport, something they can do on their own.
Sure.
I don't think someone's going to, for a lifelong sport, choose lacrosse.
Yeah.
But, when you like to have tennis, I know Richard Hernandez and I, we were spending time in Canada, and in many situations, it wasn't fair for the girls. They're just, you go to a hockey rink and the boys are playing and the girls are watching. It's really changed now. Girls hockey is incredible how well they play. But you see these kids that, you just need to go to work. You just that extracurricular pursuit. If you could just start early, you could become really, really good. But it's just a matter of, if I do this, I'll be able to do that. And, that's the way education works. It's like, well, okay, you want to be able to get this type of job, well, you got to do this.
Right.
But tennis, it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, no. No, it's, I think maybe sometimes even sport in general sometimes doesn't work that way. But yeah, it's a little bit.
Well, tennis is, pickleball is just growing leaps and bounds, but tennis is so technical where, to really excel in any sport takes a lot of time. But say the learning curve in lacrosse, very easy. So little kids, okay, to dribble basketball, dribble soccer ball. Say your son Cohen, he's 8, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot easier for him to dribble a basketball, dribble a soccer ball than go rally with your friend.
Yeah, and you can go pass a soccer ball with your friend, and you can, no, it's definitely, I think that's where tennis is. It's a very highly skilled sport with everything's a ton of repetition, but you're learning a forehand volley, forehand ground stroke, a backhand volley, backhand ground stroke, serve, overhead. I have to judge the ball. I have to, it's a very complex sport, and it takes a lot of, it's a great sport and it's fun, but it does take a lot of time. And, and I think we were talking about instant gratification. This is not an instant gratification sport.
Well, one thing with the rackets, these old wooden rackets, granted years ago, especially on the forehand, people were off on the grip, one grip system. But yet people would teach, okay, there's a ready position, there's a unit turn, there's a backswing, there's a contact, there's a follow through, there was structure.
Right.
So now it's, instant tennis, action method, no method, and just start banging balls. And years ago when a kid had to use a wooden racket, we mentioned that many times. Pete Sampras was asked, if your oldest son played tennis, what would you do? I'd recommend he play with a wooden racket.
Yeah.
So actually the equipment could be for, the governing body of tennis in this country, would that really work? Say, no, we recommend that you use these wooden rackets. And trying to think of the name of the game. We did a little work with them. Instead of pickleball, it's a wooden mallet. It's perforated, and it's a bridge sport.
Mm-hmm.
And it forces you, when you're playing a game like pickleball, that you're developing tennis strokes at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that need to be done. To me, I think tennis is in trouble.
There's a lot of pickleball courts going up everywhere. That's for sure. My dad he lost the court to pickleball. No, I think one, get kids playing and they find a passion for it, and then how can we, create creative ways to teach them good fundamentals to where they can actually grow in the sport and not have a ceiling, to where they can keep competing and having fun at this great sport. So it's a challenge.
Yeah,
it's a challenge.
Well, listeners, Matt, it's been great to have you visit. I hope we shared some ideas that will make people stop and think, but it's always great to talk to you about tennis.
Steve, thanks. been great to be here.
101, back to basics, fundamentally sound. All right. Thank you. Adios, amigos.